Chapter 1679. Suppressing Everything. Chapter 1679. Suppressing Everything. Initially, Su Zimo wanted to look for Patriarch Qi Huang, but he stopped in his tracks to watch the battle of Monk Daming. Monk Daming turned around and looked at Su Zimo, who was not far away. "I'll wait for you at the top of the ranking." With that said, Monk Daming left the Golden Light region of the rank 3 of the Divine Power ranking and headed for the region of the rank 1 of the Divine Power ranking. There were many patriarchs who hoped to fight for the Divine Power ranking, but none of them dared to challenge the rank 1 of the Divine Power ranking. If they wanted to fight for the rank 1 of the Divine Power ranking, they would have to consider how they compared against Patriarch Ji Lei. At that moment, Patriarch Qi Huang, who was qualified to fight for the rank 1 of the Divine Power ranking, was already targeted by Su Zimo. Rank 4 of the Divine Power ranking, Matriarch Zi Shuang, and rank 5 of the Divine Power ranking, Patriarch Pai Xin, exchanged glances. Tactfully, none of them challenged Monk Daming. After Monk Daming and Patriarch Ji Lei's fight ended, many patriarchs looked back at Su Zimo. Another massive battle could break out at any moment. In the Golden Light region of the rank 2 of the Divine Power ranking, Su Zimo was in a standoff with Patriarch Qi Huang. Desolate Marshal. Patriarch Qi Huang's expression was cold as he said slowly, "You still have to fight against that person later on. It's best if you don't provoke me. If I truly give it my all, you might not stand to gain. By the time you fight that person, you'll definitely lose." "You're mistaken." Su Zimo replied indifferently, "It's useless even if you give it your all." Before his sentence was finished, Su Zimo slapped his storage bag and a gigantic pitch-black seal appeared in his palm. It emitted an ancient and powerful aura that caused the void to tremble. The Human Emperor's Seal. If Su Zimo wanted to fight Monk Daming, he would definitely not waste too much stamina and methods on Patriarch Qi Huang. Therefore, he intended to use the simplest and most direct method to suppress Patriarch Qi Huang. Patriarch Qi Huang's pupils constricted. What Su Zimo was wielding was no ordinary dermic treasure, but a massive weapon of Tianhuang mainland. The weapon of the eternal human emperor possessed terrifying strength and could suppress mountains and rivers. 5 Ghost Spirit Rip. Patriarch Qi Huang hollered and channeled his essence spirit, releasing a greater divine power without testing the waters. 5 ghostly figures suddenly flew out from his palms and lunged towards Su Zimo with extremely cold auras. The 5 ghosts were incorporeal and did not fear dermic treasures. Once attached to a cultivator, they would devour the cultivator's essence spirit until the cultivator was dead. Humph! Su Zimo sneered and raised the Human Emperor's seal in his hands before him, shouting softly, "Demons and monsters, disperse!" Boom! The Human Emperor's seal shuddered gently and released an extremely domineering aura that swept through the heavens. Although the 5 ghosts did not fear dermic treasures, the power of the Human Emperor's seal had already surpassed the scope of ordinary dermic treasures. Evil divine powers could not deal with the Human Emperor's seal at all. Green light emanated from Su Zimo's body and dispersed the 5 ghosts that were charging over. 7 Luminaries' Finger. Patriarch Qi Huang channeled his essence spirit once more and released a second divine power. He extended his finger and instantly, 7 ancient stars appeared in the skies, descending with endless starlight that gathered on his finger. The 7 stars formed a single thread, causing the power of Patriarch Qi Huang's finger to reach its limits. Oh! Su Zimo smiled faintly and tossed the Human Emperor's seal in his hands into the air, smashing it towards the incoming 7 Luminaries' finger. Boom! The Human Emperor's seal collided with the 7 Luminaries' finger with a loud bang. Immediately after, the 7 stars shattered. Poof! A blood mist spewed and Patriarch Qi Huang's finger was crushed by the Human Emperor's seal. Even greater divine powers could not defend against the power of the Human Emperor's seal. Patriarch Qi Huang grunted dully and a cold glint flashed through his eyes. For Mahayana patriarchs, crushed fingers were merely superficial wounds. In the blink of an eye, Patriarch Qi Huang's finger regrew and recovered. However, right then, a huge shadow loomed over. The Human Emperor's seal carried a shocking aura and suppressed Patriarch Qi Huang. The wind howled and the world trembled. He did not have time to release the second greater divine power, and could only slash in reverse towards the Human Emperor's seal. Clang! The saber shattered. No dermic treasure could go against the human emperor's seal. Patriarch Qi Huang's expression was terrible as he hurriedly took out a second dermic treasure. It was an ancient mirror that was extremely similar to the human emperor's mirror. This was a dermic treasure created to be a replica of the human emperor's mirror and possessed extremely strong defensive capabilities. Crack! The moment the ancient mirror was summoned, it was shattered by the human emperor's seal once more. A replica dermic treasure could not fight against the human emperor's seal. At that moment, divine powers and dermic treasures were useless in the face of brute force. Su Zimo summoned the human emperor's seal because he wanted to suppress everything. Swoosh! When Patriarch Qi Huang saw that he could not defend against it, he finally could not hold on any longer. Turning into a streak of light, he released his escaped divine power and fled into the distance. Trap! Su Zimo bit his fingertip and drew a blood-colored circle in the void. The blood-colored circle descended beneath Patriarch Qi Huang's feet out of thin air, forming an invisible barrier that restricted him to the spot. Trap word art, a greater divine power. The chess emperor nodded to himself. Indeed, Desolate Marshal obtained Senior Human Emperor's legacy. After Senior Human Emperor left, that greater divine power was lost as well. Desolate Marshal is the second person ever to cultivate it. After a brief pause he continued, however, it's strange. There shouldn't be any dermic formulation for the trap word art in the ancient battlefield. How did Desolate Marshal manage to cultivate it? Break! Patriarch Qi Huang released his divine power once more and a malevolent spirit descended. His aura surged and his strength rose as he broke free of the shackles of the trap word art. However, the human emperor's seal had already descended after that single delay. Boom! Boom! There was a loud bang and the ground shook. Patriarch Qi Huang's figure had already vanished and was suppressed beneath the human emperor's seal. A stream of scarlet blood seeped out from beneath the human emperor's seal. Patriarch Qi Huang was dead. This battle ended even faster. Su Zimo did not require much strength and merely controlled the human emperor's seal to kill Patriarch Qi Huang completely. Su Zimo put away Patriarch Qi Huang's storage bag and turned to walk towards the golden light region of the rank 1 of the divine power ranking. Here it comes. The many patriarchs lamented internally and were invigorated. The white-robed man's background was mysterious and unfathomable. His battle against Desolate Marshal would definitely be a fierce one. Most patriarchs thought that it would be best if the two of them fought to the death with an internecine outcome. I'll bet on this white-robed man winning. A patriarch analyzed. This person is way too mysterious. Furthermore, he has yet to reveal his true capabilities up till now. Desolate Marshal will definitely win this battle. Another patriarch shook his head. The human emperor's seal can suppress and sweep through everything. Who can stop it? In midair, Lin Xuanji said, given Brother Su's capabilities, he will definitely be able to force out the full strength of that mysterious person. At that time, we'll know just who in the world he is. The fact that such a monster incarnate could appear in Tianhuang mainland and even escape the notice of Enigma Palace brought about immense displeasure to Lin Xuanji. Chapter 1680. Immovable Mingwang Seals. Chapter 1680. Immovable Mingwang Seal. Hundreds of thousands of kilometers away from the divine power ranking, 7 figures stood in the air and looked in the direction of the divine power ranking. Their gazes seemed to be able to cross the voids and see everything hundreds of thousands of kilometers away. The 7 figures emitted an extremely terrifying aura. Just by standing casually, they exuded the might of the Emperor Dao as though they were looking down on the world. 7 emperors. One of them was the Emperor of Chaos Essence Sect and the D-Clan. Du, I'll leave Desolate Marshal to you guys. I'll deal with that white-robed cultivator with frost metal and 7 kills. An emperor whose body shone with purple lightning said slowly. The emperor was from Zephyr Thunder Palace and his Dao title was Purple Thunder. The frost metal and 7 kills that he was referring to were on his left. They were from Glass Palace and Sword Sect. The reason why the Purple Thunder Emperor wanted to kill Monk Daming was because Monk Daming hunted down Patriarch Ji Lei and the others on the divine power ranking. The patriarchs of Glass Palace and Sword Sect on the divine power ranking were not spared either. There shouldn't be any problems if the 4 of you join forces to deal with Desolate Marshal, right? The 7 Kills Emperor looked at Du and turned to ask. Du smiled gently. Don't worry. When Desolate Marshal escaped the previous time, it was because of an accident. This time round, with 4 emperors surrounding him, Desolate Marshal won't be able to escape even if he has wings. Leave the chess emperor to me. The person who spoke was the malevolent Earth Sex Malevolent Emperor. All right. Once the golden light of the divine power ranking dissipates, we'll attack. The Purple Thunder Emperor said coldly. At that moment, Su Zimo and Monk Daming were both in the golden light regions. Even emperors would have to spend some effort to break through the golden light of the divine power ranking. Du said, once the 2 of them are severely injured and exhausted, they will be birds in our cages. Beneath the divine power ranking, many Mahayana patriarchs were gathered, watching the rank 1 golden light region of the divine power ranking. Even some patriarchs who wanted to fight for a spot on the divine power ranking stopped temporarily and watched by the side, waiting for the rare battle to end before making further plans. Unexpectedly, Su Zimo put away the human emperor's seal in his hands after entering the golden light region. Monk Daming nodded at Su Zimo and smiled. Although Su Zimo had the human emperor's seal, Monk Daming had the human emperor's mirror as well. Su Zimo would not gain any advantage with that weapon. However, Monk Daming's identity might be exposed. By doing that, Su Zimo was doing Monk Daming a favor. Needless to say, Monk Daming understood everything. He suddenly sent a voice transmission with a fake smile. Since you did me a favor, I'll tell you one thing as well. The Oriole stalks the mantis as it stalks the grasshopper. You mean the 7 people hundreds of thousands of kilometers away? Su Zimo's expression was calm. We don't know who the mantis and Oriole are yet. Monk Daming's eyes lit up as he nodded. Indeed, this was hidden from you. If you can sense it, so can I. Su Zimo smiled faintly. Monk Daming smiled as well. All right, let me see what methods and divine powers you've cultivated all these years. Great Sealing Technique. The moment he said that, Monk Daming had already attacked. An extremely strange power burst forth from his hands and enveloped Su Zimo instantly. Su Zimo's bloodline churned slower and slower, as though it was about to solidify. The strange power even entered his consciousness and attempted to seal his essence spirit. Thankfully, the black-haired essence spirit was not sealed right away with the protection of the creation Lotus platform. Great Sealing Technique. To think that this white-robed man managed to cultivate that divine power. Isn't that the greater divine power of the god race? How does he know the cultivation method of the Great Sealing Technique? The crowd exclaimed and many patriarchs were shocked. Some patriarchs who had been to the 10,000 race meet were even more shocked. Back at the 10,000 race meet, even the bloodline of the taboo dragon phoenix was sealed when a patriarch of the god race released that greater divine power. The taboo dragon phoenix was unable to take on his true form or release his peak combat strength. It was clear how strong that greater divine power was. If the dragon phoenix true body had not comprehended the greater divine power, time is like a saber, and allowed the power of divine powers to surge into his body to wash away the power of the Great Sealing Technique, he would have been doomed in that battle. Su Zimo's heart skipped a beat. If the divine power of the Great Sealing Technique was completely formed, he would not be able to break free no matter how torrential his methods were. Suddenly, Su Zimo opened his mouth and chanted Sanskrit. At the same time, he conjured hand seals repeatedly and released 6 Daming Dermic seals. The Fiend Suppression Seal, Demon Subduing Seal, Immortal Trap Seal, Immovable Foundation Seal, Great Vajra Wheel Seal and Great Mount Meru Seal. All 6 Daming Dermic seals condensed in front of Su Zimo. Condense! Suddenly, Su Zimo hollered and channeled his essence spirit. Under his control, the 6 Daming Dermic seals changed and released an extremely terrifying power. The power of divine powers descended. The formation of the 6 Daming Dermic seals was a greater divine power. Suddenly, another gigantic phantom appeared on Su Zimo's figure. It was green and black with a slanted top and skirt. Holding a sword in its right hand and a rope in its left, it stood amidst the raging flames like an immovable mountain. The greater divine power, Immovable Mingwang 1 seal. The immovable Ming King had descended. Boom! A tremendous divine power burst forth from Su Zimo's body, purging away the power of the Great Sealing technique and restoring his blood chi to normal. Su Zimo released the immovable Mingwang seal and dispelled the Great Sealing technique almost perfectly. A look of admiration flashed through Monk Daming's eyes when he saw that. The fact that Su Zimo was able to cultivate the Daming True Sutra to this realm meant that Daming Monastery had a successor. That fact that its legacy was not lost brought him nothing but happiness and relief. Take a greater divine power from me as well. Su Zimo conjured lotus flowers with both hands and pointed forward. Suddenly, heaven and earth rumbled. A bedazzling light descended from the firmaments. Many patriarchs looked up instinctively and saw an extremely shocking scene. In the skies, jade-green lotus flowers descended one after another before swiveling slowly. Multicolored light filled the skies and everything floated gently. At the same time, Sanskrit sounded from the skies in a shuddering manner. Under such a phenomenon, many patriarchs had dazed expressions and lost their Tao hearts. They nearly knelt on the ground and prostrated to convert to Buddhism. The chess emperor let out a shocked expression as well and murmured, "Legend has it that when accomplished monks of the Buddhist monasteries preach, they can touch the heavens. Even the lotus flowers in the skies will descend one after another. It's only now that I know that they're not lying." This was a greater divine power nurtured by the creation green lotus, heavenly flower fall. Back when Su Zimo entered the Mahayana realm, he attracted this auspicious phenomenon. For him, comprehending that greater divine power was something that happened naturally. Monk Daming raised his head slightly and looked at the lotus flowers falling from the skies. His eyes were still clear, as though they contained endless wisdom. His Buddhism was profound and was not weaker than the green lotus true body. Sanskrit or a phenomenon as such could not affect his Tao heart. Chapter 1681. Earth Gushing Golden Lotus. Chapter 1681. Earth Gushing Golden Lotus. Suddenly, an extremely cold aura emanated from Monk Daming and he emitted a billowing fog as the temperature of the world plummeted. A layer of frost covered the golden light region of the divine power ranking. Boundless Frost Seal. Monk Daming propped up both hands and a chilling intent burst forth from his palms. Accompanied with a series of crackling sounds, the void froze. The falling lotus flowers became crystalline, as though they were in a frozen lake. With the restriction of the divine power ranking, the range of effect of the divine power naturally did not extend to 5,000 kilometers. However, the entire golden light region was enveloped by ice. Notwithstanding the lotus flowers that fell from the skies, even Su Zimo who was opposite them was swiftly covered by a layer of ice. The phantom of the immovable Ming King behind him was also gradually collapsing. The golden light region was now an extreme frost region. Any dermic arts, divine powers, secret skills or dermic treasures would be frozen. Boundless Frost Seal. The chess emperor frowned slightly. Usually, only patriarchs of Snowdrift Valley are able to cultivate that greater divine power. Could he be a successor of Snowdrift Valley? That's not for sure. At the side, Lin Xuanji shook his head. We've got to take a closer look. The cultivation techniques and legacies in this person's body are way too mixed and it's probably difficult to deduce. This greater divine power is extremely strong and Desolate Marshal won't have an easy time dealing with it. The chess emperor murmured softly. On the battlefield. When Boundless Frost Seal descended, a layer of chilling ice crystals appeared in Su Zimo's bloodline and his consciousness was filled with coldness. The bloodline of the green lotus true body was about to freeze. In his consciousness, the creation lotus platform spun slowly and the black-haired essence spirit released another burst from his powerful spirit consciousness, forming a second greater divine power. Bang! Suddenly, the ice on the ground cracked and a blinding golden light shone through the crack, radiating brightly. The next moment, a golden lotus flower broke through the ice layer and surged out from the ground. Bang! 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 Immediately after, the sound of ice cracking could be heard from the battlefield. Golden lotus flowers tore through the ground and appeared with a blinding golden light. The frost on the battlefield seemed to have met with a blazing sun and melted one after another. It was another greater divine power nurtured by the creation green lotus, the earth-gushing golden lotus. Back when Su Zimo was at Golden Core Realm, He fused 3 phenomenons and created a golden lotus flower above the turtle and snake. He had long come into contact and comprehended the Tao techniques within the golden lotus flower. Furthermore, he was the creation green lotus to begin with, and there were almost no obstacles in comprehending that greater divine power. At the golden core realm, that golden lotus flower was only condensed from spirit energy, and there was only one. But now, millions of golden lotus flowers were surging out from beneath Su Zimo's feet through the ice. Boom! Su Zimo's blood chi surged and he broke free of the frost on his body instantly. Breaking out of the ice, his gaze burned and his aura rose continuously. Monk Daming's expression changed slightly as he conjured hand seals with both hands and hurriedly channeled another greater divine power. Sunset Flare! With a soft shout, a blazing sun appeared in the firmaments and descended like a gigantic fireball. The gigantic fireball fell to the ground and the entire golden light region fell into a sea of flames, enveloping many golden lotuses as well. You've miscalculated. When Su Zimo saw that, he shook his head gently and smiled. Monk Daming's expression changed as well. His greater divine power could not refine the golden lotus flowers on the ground. Instead, it intensified the aura of the golden lotus flowers and their growth increased exponentially. The reason why he released that fire divine power was because he wanted to make use of the nature of the 5 elements to refine Su Zimo's divine power golden lotus flowers. Among the 5 elements, fire countered metal. Furthermore, the lotus flowers belonged to the wood element and feared fire as well. Under normal circumstances, the sunset flare should be a perfect counter to the earth gushing golden lotus. However, the birth of the golden lotus had already surpassed the 5 elements and was beyond common sense. It was formed by the intertwining of turtle and snake, the sun and moon, light and darkness, yin and yang. Before the golden lotus was born, it was originally a green lotus. Its shade of green was burned away by the scorching flames of the turtle snake, allowing it to release blinding golden lights. The golden lotus was born from the flames to begin with. Not only did Monk Daming's sunset flare fail to refine the golden lotus flowers that surged out from the ground, it even made the auras of the golden lotus flowers even stronger. Metal was indestructible and eternal. It shared the longevity of heaven and earth and illuminated alongside the sun and moon. The flames burned furiously and the golden lotus flowers that surged out from the ground grew stronger, charging towards Monk Daming. Bang! There were too many golden lotus flowers and Monk Daming could not dodge in time. He was struck by a golden lotus flower and his body shuddered as blood scars appeared on his face. Amazing! Monk Daming spat out a mouthful of blood and praised. His body was strong and condensed and could even take on Dermic Treasure's head-on. However, it was nearly shattered by the golden lotus flower. It was clear how terrifying that greater divine power was. Of course, given Monk Daming's blood chi, even if he was smashed into pieces by the golden lotus flower, he was not severely injured and could recover in the blink of an eye. However, this exchange caused the situation of the battle to change gradually. The golden lotus flowers were endless and dense. Although the golden light region was vast, there was not much space for Monk Daming to dodge. He had just released a greater divine power and his essence spirit had to ease slightly before he could release a second. However, the golden lotus flowers beneath showed no signs of stopping and surged continuously. Swoosh! Monk Daming suddenly took a step behind. Although that step seemed ordinary, it was mysterious and graceful. That single step landed right in a gap between the golden lotus flowers. Exquisite steps! In midair, the Chess Emperor and Lin Xuanji exclaimed at the same time. Just who is that person? Lin Xuanji frowned. It was no secret that the mystic firmament record was stolen by this person. However, the fact that this person could comprehend Ancestor Ling Long's secret skill in such a short period of time was way too terrifying. The mystic firmament record had a long history. Although there had been many paragons in Enigma Palace over the years, only a few of them could comprehend the exquisite steps. Most of them merely comprehended the mystic firmament steps. In fact, cultivators of Enigma Palace even felt that Ancestor Ling Long had not left behind the complete legacy of the exquisite steps in Enigma Palace. In this generation, only Demonist Ji who entered the human emperor's palace obtained the true legacy of Ancestor Ling Long and comprehended the exquisite steps. However, the scene before them shocked the two of them. This meant that there was indeed a cultivation technique for the exquisite steps in the mystic firmament record. However, they had not been able to crack the secret within. But now, the exquisite steps was cultivated by an outsider with a mysterious background. When Demoness G released her exquisite steps, her figure was graceful like a dragon. As for Monk Daming, he released the exquisite steps with an indescribable grace and ease, as though he was an immortal that was floating among the clouds, strolling leisurely among the golden lotus flowers. Chapter 1682. Arrival of the Emperors. Chapter 1682. Arrival of the Emperors. Swoosh. Su Zimo's figure flashed and he arrived before Monk Daming in the blink of an eye. He flipped his palm to suppress the latter. Even if Monk Daming released the exquisite steps, he had already lost the initiative. For experts like Su Zimo and Monk Daming, any single mistake made by anyone would be captured and taken advantage of by the other party. Bang! Monk Daming punched in reverse and collided with Su Zimo's palm with a dull thud. Their blood chi intertwined and devoured one another without relenting. Su Zimo did not gain any advantage in that head-on clash. However, Monk Daming had no choice but to retreat and dodge. That was because golden lotus flowers were still surging underground continuously. He had to deal with Su Zimo while dodging the golden lotus flowers beneath his feet. However, Su Zimo would not be disturbed as such. He rode on the golden lotus flowers while they would not affect or harm him. Bang, bang, bang. Both parties fought with speed. Su Zimo attacked consecutively and released a flurry of attacks without giving Monk Daming any chance to catch his breath. Their blood chi rose continuously and they reached the tsunami blood realm before long. However, both of them had a tacit understanding and did not choose to release their bloodline phenomenons. This was not a life-and-death battle. That white-robed man is way too strong. Lin Xuanji said sternly, Brother Su's green lotus true body has grown to grade 8 and can even crush dermic treasures. To think that this person could fight against him for so long. The Chess Emperor nodded as well. That's right. Although that person is restricted by the earth-gushing golden lotus and is disadvantaged, seemingly suppressed by Desolate Martial, there's no way to determine the victor. Once the divine power of the earth-gushing golden lotus dissipates, that person will regain his freedom and won't be threatened by the golden lotus flowers. The outcome will be even more unpredictable. Lin Xuanji shook his head. No, Brother Su still has some trump cards that he has yet to reveal. If he does, that person will definitely lose. Phew! The Chess Emperor smiled gently and asked, How do you know that this person doesn't have similar trump cards to deal with them? Lin Xuanji's heart skipped a beat. The Chess Emperor was right. He knew nothing about this person. All he knew was that this person had shocking talent and was extremely audacious. He could even infiltrate Enigma Palace to steal the books and even set Su Zimo up. It was not surprising if such a monster incarnate had extraordinary methods. Or rather, this person definitely had other trump cards. Lin Xuanji murmured softly, to think that in this generation, there could be someone who could match Brother Su. How scary. On the battlefield. Although Su Zimo had the upper hand, Monk Daming dealt with it calmly. Su Zimo did not use trump cards such as the heaven-slaying sword sheath. That was because he knew that Monk Daming had some powerful trump cards as well. Even if they were released, it would not affect the outcome of this battle. That's incredible. Su Zimo could not help but praise internally. Monk Daming made an error in judgment and released a greater divine power that boosted his earth-gushing golden lotus, allowing him to gain the upper hand. Despite that, Monk Daming was still able to fight him head-on, relying on his powerful combat strength to weave through the gaps of the golden lotus flowers. Monk Daming was indeed the strongest opponent he had encountered. If the two of them were to fight to the death and use all their trump cards, no one would know which of them would survive. Right then, the divine power ranking trembled and released another blinding golden light, forming two golden beams that shone on Su Zimo and Monk Daming. The two beams of light isolated the two of them as well. That is, the divine power ranking is passing down its inheritance. How could that be? The outcome between the two of them has yet to be decided. This scene caused a commotion. Look! Someone pointed to the top of the divine power ranking and a Dao title slowly appeared, Desolate Marshal. Immediately after, still at the top of the divine power ranking and ranked beside Desolate Marshal, there were faint words. Another Dao title was about to appear. When Monk Daming saw that, he suddenly said, "My Dao title is Solar Lunat." The words that were about to appear on the divine power ranking suddenly turned blurry. Finally, the word Solar Luna appeared beside Desolate Marshal. Desolate Marshal. Solar Luna. 2 Dao titles were ranked at the top of the divine power ranking. It's unprecedented to have equivalent ranks in the divine power ranking. What a rare sight. Even in the ancient era, there was no such situation. Could even the divine power ranking not bear to see the two of them continue fighting? That's indeed a possibility. The establishment of the divine power ranking is to make the human race stronger, not to kill one another. No matter which of those 2 monster incarnates dies, it's a huge loss for the human race. Many patriarchs exclaimed. Solar Luna. Lin Xuanji frowned and pondered for a long time before shaking his head. I've never heard of that name. Even in the ancient books of Enigma Palace, there's no such person. I've never heard of it either. The Chess Emperor shook his head. After a brief pause he continued, however, that Dao title might not be real. Initially, the divine power ranking was almost about to reveal this person's true Dao title. However, the divine power ranking changed at the last minute when this person suddenly mentioned the Dao title Solar Luna. Just who is that person? Why is he hiding his identity? Lin Xuanji frowned and murmured, Solar Luna, Solar Luna. Among everyone present, Su Zimo was probably the only one who knew that the characters for Solar Luna formed the character for Ming when joined together. However, at that moment, neither Su Zimo nor Monk Daming were in the mood to think too much. The inheritance of the divine power ranking was akin to enlightenment. Every single breath was extremely precious. The two of them held their breaths and closed their eyes, comprehending the inheritance that descended from the divine power ranking carefully. Everyone knew that the top 6 of the divine power ranking would all inherit a supreme divine power from the human emperor. As for the rank 1, the supreme divine power inherited was the strongest. I reckon that it might be the human emperor's killing word art. It might also be the Paramitha Bridge. When the Paramitha Bridge was released at the 10,000 race meet, even the supreme divine powers of the primordial races could not defend against it and collapsed instantly. Many patriarchs discussed excitedly. Look! A patriarch pointed at Monk Daming and suddenly said, the word kill appeared above that person's head. Seems like the killing word art has been imparted to that person. A golden bridge formed from countless runes has appeared above Desolate Marshal's head. Desolate Marshal obtained the inheritance of the Paramitha Bridge. Many patriarchs revealed envious expressions. Right then, an extremely terrifying might descended and the entire world seemed to darken. Black clouds surged over and the air was heavy. Many patriarchs looked up instinctively. 7 terrifying figures stood in the firmaments, emitting Emperor Dao auras and looking down at the world with cold expressions. 7 emperors. Chapter 1683. See you again in the pugilistic world. Chapter 1683. See you again in the pugilistic world. The 7 emperors stood side by side and the person in the middle was Chaos Essence Sect and the D-Clan's U Emperor. On both sides of him stood the Purple Thunder Emperor of Zephyr Thunder Palace, the Frost Emperor of Glass Palace, the Killing Emperor of Sword Sect, the Malevolent Emperor of Malevolent Earth Sect, the North Firmament Emperor of Heavenly Dipper Sect and the Breaking Sea Emperor of Penglai Island. Although no one knew the exact number of emperors of the human race, Enigma Palace had once speculated that there were only around 30 of them, including some reclusive emperors. Even in the ancient battlefield, these emperors rarely appeared. But now, 7 emperors had arrived together. This was a rare sight throughout history. Everyone present were patriarchs who had lived for tens of thousands of years and were sharp about the human heart. The moment they saw Du and the others appear, they knew why and who they were here for. Desolate Marshal is dead. A patriarch smiled. I heard that the previous time round, the U Emperor failed to kill Desolate Marshal. To think that he would actually gather 7 emperors this time round. Desolate Marshal truly won't be able to escape. That's right. Another patriarch said, although the divine power ranking passed down a supreme divine power to Desolate Marshal, he will still require a long time to comprehend it. Even if 2 emperors were to attack right now, he would definitely die, let alone 7 emperors. Heh! That white-robed cultivator won't be able to escape death either. A patriarch of Zephyr Thunder Palace said, "This person killed a few patriarchs on the divine power ranking. Our Purple Thunder Emperor will definitely suppress him and make him pay with his blood. The situation is bad." In the crowd, Demonis G said sternly, "There's still no news of the Mystic Emperor after he entered the Human Emperor's palace while the Emperors of Diamond Monastery, Snowdrift Valley and the other supersects are still healing. Nobody can help Zimo right now." Mingzhan said deeply, "I believe junior brother Ming Exine must have predicted such a situation. He might be prepared." In midair, the Chess Emperor glanced at Desolate Marshal and Monk Daming who were still receiving their inheritance and retracted his gaze. He looked at Du and the others and asked loudly, "What's the meaning of this, everyone?" "Nothing much," Du said indifferently. "I want to settle some grudges with Desolate Marshal today." The Chess Emperor said in a deep voice, "Du, Desolate Marshal did a great deed at the 10,000 race meet and he's the future hope of the human race. The primordial races are the most wary of him. If the primordial races reappear after you kill Desolate Marshal, who can suppress them?" Right now, Tianhuang Mainland is a place where the 10,000 races coexist. The primordial races have already agreed to it and there's no threat at all. Du said, "Furthermore, the primordial races were shocked by the human emperor and their top emperors are either dead or injured. They were scared out of their wits and are no longer a threat to the human race." "Right, since we mentioned the human emperor." The Chess Emperor hollered, "Desolate Marshal obtained the title of the Eternal Human Emperor and is the successor that was selected by the Eternal Human Emperor personally. He is the current human emperor. If you want to kill him, that's equivalent to disrespecting the human emperor. Are you trying to commit treason?" Ha 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 ha. Du burst into laughter. "Chess Emperor, don't use the Eternal Human Emperor to suppress me. Desolate Marshal is merely a patriarch right now and has yet to become an emperor. How can he be considered as the human emperor? The position of the human emperor belongs to the capable. Desolate Marshal is merely a patriarch. Even if he's invincible among his peers, can he defeat me? What rights does he have to become the human emperor?" Suddenly, Lin Xuanji said, "Du, you have to think carefully. Desolate Marshal has another true body that's a taboo dragon phoenix. If you dare to kill Desolate Marshal, the taboo dragon phoenix will definitely lead the dragon race to flatten Chaos Essence Sect and kill your D-clan. You'll be a sinner of Chaos Essence Sect and the D-clan." "Sure thing." Du was fearless when he heard that. Instead, he nodded and laughed. "Get Desolate Marshal's dragon phoenix true body to kill. Kill the entire D-clan and all the cultivators of Chaos Essence Sect. That will be a great opportunity for the world to witness how Desolate Marshal slaughters human cultivators with the bloodline of a primordial race taboo." Lin Xuanji frowned. This matter was indeed troublesome to deal with. Even if Du killed Desolate Marshal, it would be difficult for the Dragon Phoenix true body to attack. Firstly, the Dragon Phoenix true body had a taboo bloodline and was not human. His identity was sensitive and he would definitely be scolded and criticized if he massacred human cultivators. Secondly, this was Du's doing and had nothing to do with anyone else. Given Desolate Marshal's character, he would definitely not implicate Chaos Essence Sect and the D-clan just because of Du. On the divine power ranking, the light on Su Zimo and Monk Daming's bodies were getting fainter. This meant that the inheritance was about to end. Once the inheritance was over, the golden light beneath the rank 1 of the divine power ranking would dissipate as well. At that time, Su Zimo and Monk Daming would be completely exposed to the 7 emperors. Although the Chess Emperor was anxious, he had no good solution. He frowned and looked at the emperors beside Du, saying in a deep voice, "Purple Thunder, 7 kills. You guys don't have any deep feud with Desolate Marshal, right? Desolate Marshal killed my titular disciple. Doesn't that count?" The killing emperor asked instead. The Chess Emperor sneered internally. How is it appropriate for emperors like ourselves to appear and take revenge personally for the deaths of our sect's titular disciples? The Purple Thunder Emperor pointed to Monk Daming beside Su Zimo. "The 3 of us are here to kill that person. That person hid like a coward and hunted patriarchs of our sects on the divine power ranking. Let's see who he is." The Frost Emperor of Glass Palace said coldly. Chess Emperor, you had better make way and scram to the side to study your chess manuals quietly. The Malevolent Emperor retrieved a spear made from an unknown beast bone from his storage bag. It emitted a torrential aura as he pointed at the Chess Emperor and said coldly, "If you stand in our way, we'll kill you as well." The Chess Emperor's expression turned cold when he heard that. Even though he was obsessed with chess and rarely fought with others, he was still an emperor and was incomparably noble. There was no way he would allow others to humiliate and provoke him like this. "All right, let's see how you're going to kill me." Right then, the divine power ranking vibrated. The two beams of light on Su Zimo and Monk Daming had already dissipated and the golden light surrounding the area had faded as well. Both of them opened their eyes at the same time. Swoosh, swoosh, swoosh. The gazes of Du and the other emperors descended instantly and landed on the two of them, releasing a terrifying pressure. Even against the pressure of the 7 emperors, Su Zimo and Monk Daming's expressions did not change. In fact, the two of them did not even look up at the 7 emperors above them. The two of them merely exchanged glances with fighting spirit in their eyes. The battle between the two of them earlier on was not over yet. "Brother Su, I'm afraid we won't be able to continue with our fight." Monk Daming suddenly smiled. "However, we can do it another way." Su Zimo's heart skipped a beat as he vaguely guessed something. "There are 7 emperors here. I heard that 3 of them are here for me." Monk Daming's eyes lit up. "Next, we'll see which of us can survive against the pursuit of these emperors." "All right." Su Zimo nodded and replied with a fake smile. "However, you'll definitely lose." Monk Daming smiled gently. "Don't brag too soon. I hope that you'll still be alive the next time I see you. See you again in the pugilistic world." With that said, Monk Daming's blood chi surged and he burst forth with a greater divine power that could shrink the ground into inches, sprinting into the distance. Chapter 1684. Chess Destiny. Chapter 1684. Chess Destiny. Although the fact that Monk Daming fled after receiving the inheritance did not look honorable, it was the wisest choice. Even he could not fight against emperors head-on and could only avoid them temporarily. "Junior, there's nowhere for you to run." The Purple Thunder Emperor was the first to react and hollered. Electric arcs burst forth from his body as he chased after Monk Daming. The Frost Emperor transformed into a rainbow-colored streak of light and crossed half the void, traveling at least 5,000 kilometers. The Killing Emperor rode on his flying sword and followed closely behind. In the blink of an eye, 3 emperors chased after Monk Daming and disappeared from everyone's sights. When he saw that, Su Zimo smiled gently with a sense of warmth in his heart. This outcome was probably part of Monk Daming's plan. Part of the reason why he hunted the patriarchs of the divine power ranking was because those patriarchs cultivated the blood refinement fiend sutra. On the other hand, it was also to help Su Zimo. If Su Zimo could guess that an emperor would descend to kill him in the divine power ranking this time round, Monk Daming could naturally guess as well. That was the reason why he decided to hunt the patriarchs of the divine power ranking at this time. That way, it was equivalent to 3 emperors lured away by Monk Daming. The pressure on Su Zimo was significantly reduced as well. Of course, Monk Daming would definitely not openly admit to it. "Desolate Marshal, why aren't you running?" Du looked down at Su Zimo with a mocking expression, as though he was looking at a dying man. He smiled and asked, "Why? You're already prepared to surrender?" He's quite a smart person. He knows that he can't run. The North Firmament Emperor of Heavenly Dipper Sect mocked as well. The Breaking Sea Emperor said, "Should we discuss? Perhaps, if Desolate Marshal is willing to hand over the human Emperor's seal and beg for mercy, we can consider giving him a chance." The remaining 4 emperors mocked them with relaxed expressions. Su Zimo smiled as well. "Of course, the reason why I'm not running is because there's no need to." When he saw how composed Su Zimo was, Du's expression darkened as he harumphed coldly. "Desolate Marshal, even if you die 10 times, it's not enough to resolve the feud between you and Chaos Essence Sect as well as the D-Clan. I'm prepared to restrain your essence spirit. Let's see what secrets you have to be able to cultivate to this point." Before his sentence was finished, Du extended his palm and crushed down on Su Zimo like a millstone. Great Chaos Essence Palm. Although it was not a divine power, when released by an emperor, the power of the Great Chaos Essence Palm was incomparably terrifying. It could even crush greater divine powers with ease. "Du, how dare you!" The Chess Emperor had a furious expression and attacked right away. He slapped his back and flung the stone slab on his back. There were vertical lines drawn on the stone slab that intertwined and split the entire stone slab into tiny blocks. The stone slab seemed to possess a demonic power. Many Mahayana patriarchs looked at the stone slab and their gazes and minds seemed to be absorbed by it, spinning continuously. The stone slab was a chessboard. Swoosh! Suddenly, the sound of sharp blades tearing through the air echoed as a sinister wind howled. A slender black light struck the chessboard heavily and sparks flew. The sound of metal clashing was extremely ear-piercing. Many patriarchs shuddered and woke up. The malevolent emperor at the side had thrown out the bone spear in his hands. He said coldly, "Chess Emperor, I'm your opponent." At the same time, the North Firmament Emperor and the Breaking Sea Emperor attacked at the same time. The North Firmament Emperor punched towards Su Zimo through the void and a gigantic star appeared in the firmaments, emitting an endless might as though it wanted to crush Su Zimo into sludge. The Breaking Sea Emperor waved his sleeves and the sound of tsunami surged. A bottomless ocean appeared on the battlefield with a majestic might. It was as though the Breaking Sea Emperor had moved the entire East Sea here. The Chess Emperor channeled his essence spirit wildly and slapped his storage bag, retrieving black and white chess pieces that scattered onto the chessboard. "Chess Destiny!" He hollered and released a supreme divine power. Clang, clang, clang. The black and white chess pieces landed on the chessboard and it spun slowly, emitting a mysterious power as though it was sucking all living beings into it as chess pieces. Those black and white chess pieces meant that all living beings in the world could not escape from this chessboard. When that supreme divine power was released, the power of Du, the Breaking Sea Emperor and the North Firmament Emperor was absorbed by the spinning chessboard. Humph! Finger Yellow Springs. The malevolent emperor channeled his essence spirit hurriedly and pointed forward as well. Suddenly, a turbid yellow river appeared beneath his finger and surged towards the chessboard in midair. The water of the yellow springs possessed an extremely terrifying power and endless corpses floated within. They were eternal and were the most filthy. The chessboard was soaked in the yellow springs and its glow dimmed instantly. The black and white pieces on the chessboard began to fall off as well. Humph! Du sneered, "Chess Emperor, you overestimate yourself. You want to fight against us 4 emperors just because you've comprehended a supreme divine power? You're courting death." Chaos Essence Grotto-heaven. Du waved his sleeves and the void in midair suddenly collapsed, revealing a gigantic and deep hole that spun continuously with a powerful suction force. The Grotto-heaven was pitch black and emitted a cold aura. The Chess Emperor's face was pale. No matter how he channeled his blood chi, he could not control his body and began to float towards Chaos Essence Grotto-heaven. Before he was pulled into Chaos Essence Grotto-heaven, he could already sense the destructive aura contained within. It was as though it wanted to tear and shatter everything. The Chess Emperor knew very well how powerful that supreme divine power was. Once he fell into it, it would be useless even with blood rebirth. He would descend upon that endless abyss and be minced to death. He struggled with all his might but could not stop himself. The chessboard of the Chess Emperor was restricted by the water of yellow springs and could not be controlled yet. He could only take out a few more dermic treasures from his storage bag to defend against the power of Chaos Essence Grotto-heaven. However, the moment those dermic treasures were taken out, they were absorbed by Chaos Essence Grotto-heaven and turned into dust. Even dermic treasures could not withstand the power of Chaos Essence Grotto-heaven. "Chess Emperor, there's no need for you to struggle." The Breaking Sea Emperor smiled gently. "Let me send you off on your final journey." Weak water. The Breaking Sea Emperor extended his palm. An extremely rich divine power was released from his palm, forming a tiny stream that was only as thick as an arm. However, after the stream appeared, it was as though the entire world had fallen into it. Weak water was the legendary immortal water of the upper world that could not be breached. Even a goose's feather could not float on it. In weak water, even if one had extraordinary methods, they would fall into it. Some divine powers and dermic arts would even be rendered completely useless. Although the stream that was as thick as an arm did not have much momentum, the release of that supreme divine power drowned the Chess Emperor's final hope. The Chess Emperor was washed by the weak water and fell towards the pitch-black chaos essence Grotto-heaven with a dim gaze and an expression of despair. Lin Xuanji and the others could only watch helplessly. This was a battle between emperors. Those were supreme divine powers, and his strength was as insignificant as an ant in the face of them. Right then, Lin Xuanji's gaze shifted to Su Zimo and gradually froze. Chapter 1685. Killing Emperors. Chapter 1685. Killing Emperors. Su Zimo did not attack when the battle broke out in midair. He had comprehended less than 10 greater divine powers. Even if he attacked, he could not affect the entire situation. Su Zimo merely took out something from his robes. It was a long scroll with words written on it. That is. When Lin Xuanji saw that, his gaze froze as he murmured, "The human emperor's Dharmic edict." Su Zimo held the long scroll with both hands and spread it slowly above his head. There was a line of scarlet words written on that snow-white scroll. Everything was written with blood. The human race is declining and emperors are useless. I heard that Desolate Marshal rose in Tianhuang mainland and established the martial Dao to bring blessings to the masses. I, the human emperor, have decided to pass down my title to Desolate Marshal. Once Desolate Marshal is conferred the title of Emperor, he will become the human emperor and be respected by the world. Now that those scarlet words reappeared, the voice of the eternal human emperor seemed to echo in the void with a terrifying might. An extremely terrifying power was released from the long scroll, causing Du and the others to shudder. The human emperor's Dharmic edict. A Mahayana patriarch recognized the origin of the long scroll and exclaimed. Many Mahayana patriarchs stared at the scroll and the words on it. There were many blood-red words of the same character. Kill. Ah! Suddenly, a tragic cry sounded from midair. The North Firmament Emperor of Heavenly Dipper sect convulsed and was suddenly sliced into pieces, turning into blood clots. His essence spirit had just escaped when it shuddered and was severed by a chilling killing intent, dying on the spot. Right in front of everyone, the North Firmament Emperor died. Pest! Many patriarchs gasped and their expressions changed. It was only now that they realized that the kill words that burst forth from the human emperor's Dharmic edict were not their imagination. It had truly happened. The supreme divine power of the human emperor, the killing word art, was hidden within the human emperor's Dharmic edict. It was only at that moment that many Mahayana patriarchs understood why Desolate Marshal did not escape. So the human emperor had left such a powerful trump card for Desolate Marshal with his Dharmic edict. One after another, bloodied kill words appeared in midair. They were condensed and did not dissipate, filled with a chilling killing intent. Heaven and earth trembled. The void seemed to have been sliced into pieces by the kill words. The breaking sea emperor's weak water sliced into pieces by a killing word art. His divine powers dissipated and a terrifying killing intent descended on him instantly. His figure swayed and his eyes dimmed instantly as he fell from midair. His essence spirit was completely destroyed in his consciousness. He was killed by a single killing intent from the killing word art. Although the yellow springs water of the malevolent emperor was incomparably filthy, it was sliced into nothingness by the killing word art. Du's chaos essence Grotto-heaven was sliced into pieces by a bloodied kill word and dissipated on the spot. The chess emperor seized the opportunity to escape as well. Weak water, finger yellow springs and chaos essence Grotto-heaven. All of them were destroyed by the eternal human emperor's killing word art. Even the heavenly god emperor, who was domineering and invincible back then, and acknowledged himself to be comparable to the eternal human emperor, was killed on the spot by a single killing word art. Let alone the emperors before them. This supreme divine power of the killing word art was not released personally by the eternal human emperor. However, every single word on the human emperor's Dharmic edict was written using the blood of the heavenly god emperor and the others in the past and possessed immense might. The reason why the eternal human emperor passed the human emperor's seal to Su Zimo was to train the latter. However, the eternal human emperor would definitely not let anyone bully Su Zimo casually. Others merely thought that it was an ordinary Dharmic edict. However, Only Su Zimo knew that this was the final trump card given to him by the eternal human emperor. Actually, Su Zimo could not activate the killing word art on the human emperor's dermic edict. The killing word art would only appear when it was triggered by a supreme divine power. Back then, when Du hunted down Su Zimo a few hundred years ago, he wanted to release the human emperor's dermic edict. However, once this trump card was exposed, outsiders would be prepared and the threat of it would be greatly reduced. Right now, Du and the others wanted to take advantage of the divine power ranking to kill Desolate Marshal. It was the same for Su Zimo. He had hidden the human emperor's dermic edict for so long just for today. The human emperor's dermic edict was completely released, and in the blink of an eye, the two emperors, the North Firmament Emperor and the Breaking Sea Emperor, died, leaving only the Malevolent Emperor and Du. However, the kill words on the human emperor's dermic edict had yet to dissipate and was charging towards the two of them. The Malevolent Emperor retracted his bone spear hurriedly and thrust it towards a kill word in front of him. At the same time, he summoned a gigantic bell from his storage bag and it hovered above his head. Crack! When the bone spear collided with the kill word, the sound of cracking could be heard. Instantly, the bone spear shattered on the spot and fell from midair. However, the killing word art did not stop and struck the gigantic bell. Clang! There was a loud bang. The bell sounded from afar and shattered on the spot. After destroying two dermic treasures in succession, the killing word art had already dissipated. The Malevolent Emperor spat out a mouthful of blood and his face turned pale as he fled into the distance. Although he lost two dermic treasures, one of which was his destiny dermic treasure, he managed to defend against that fatal attack and escape. Right then, Su Zimo sneered. Suddenly, he threw the human emperor's dermic edict in his hands and it tore through the air. The human emperor's dermic edict descended on the head of the Malevolent Emperor. The moment the Malevolent Emperor escaped, his vision darkened before he could catch his breath. A long scroll filled with blood words enveloped him. The human emperor's dermic edict was filled with the blood of the top emperors of the primordial races and was filled with killing intent that tore everything apart. The Malevolent Emperor was enveloped by the human emperor's dermic edict and his essence spirit was minced into a blood mist before it could escape. His essence spirit was destroyed and he died on the spot. Before his death, the last thought of the Malevolent Emperor was regret. It was not regret for coming here, but regret for not following the Purple Thunder Emperor and the others to hunt down the white-robed man. In the blink of an eye, Du was the only one left among the four emperors. When Du's Chaos Essence Grotto-heaven was shattered by the killing word art, he realized that something was amiss and turned to flee right away. Trying to escape? Su Zimo glared at Du's back view and controlled the human emperor's dermic edict once more to envelop him as well. Whoosh! The human emperor's dermic edict tore through the air and descended on Du's head instantly. Countless scarlet words seemed to have jumped out of the dermic edict and wanted to tear Du apart. Du had a grim expression. He witnessed the Malevolent Emperor being sucked in by the human emperor's dermic edict without a corpse left. He knew very well that if he were to fall into it, he would definitely die here as well. Suddenly, a strange blood glint flashed through Du's eyes. Dermic blood escape. Du released the blood escape technique from the Blood Refinement Fiend Sutra and burned almost half of his bloodline. His speed increased exponentially and he transformed into a blood beam, escaping from the envelopment of the human emperor's dermic edict. Chapter 1686. Sabotaging Emperors. Chapter 1686. Sabotaging Emperors. The Blood Refinement Fiend Sutra again. Su Zimo's heart skipped a beat and he narrowed his eyes. Up till now, he knew that there were close to 10 people who cultivated this fiend technique. He was already shocked that patriarchs on the divine power ranking cultivated the Blood Refinement Fiend Sutra. To think that even an emperor cultivated this fiend technique. Su Zimo had no desire to chase after Du after the latter released dermic blood escape. He knew the blood escape technique the best. Unless he was an emperor, there was no way he could catch up to Du. At the same time, Su Zimo understood something. There was a high chance that Du had cultivated the Blood Refinement Fiend Sutra 10,000 years ago. Back when he descended to the North region and ambushed the red-headed ghost, he even wanted to kill the latter. It was not because he wanted to save the cultivators of Daming and Fahua monasteries. Du merely wanted to lure the dragon race out and trigger an even more tragic battle. Rivers of blood in the entire north region were what he wanted to see. Unfortunately, the red-headed ghost was severely injured and was on the brink of death. However, the Dharma Emperor sacrificed his remaining lifespan and with a compassionate heart, saved the red-headed ghost. That was also the reason why the dragon race did not appear and massacre the north region. Su Zimo beckoned and retracted the human emperor's Dermic edict. After this battle, the power of the eternal human emperor on the Dermic edict had been exhausted. Even if Su Zimo summoned the human emperor's Dermic edict again, it would no longer be a threat. However, there was still a legacy of a supreme divine power left on the Dermic edict. The killing word art. This was the final gift left behind for Su Zimo by the human emperor. The human emperor's seal possessed the legacy of a supreme divine power. 3 heads 6 arms. Earlier on, when he was at the top of the divine power ranking, Su Zimo even inherited the legacy of the Paramitha bridge. Coupled with the inheritance of the killing word art in the human emperor's Dermic edict. Of the 6 supreme divine powers comprehended by the eternal human emperor in the past, 3 of the strongest ones were passed down to Su Zimo. Once this was over, Su Zimo would enter seclusion once more and attempt to become an emperor. Right then, a figure sped over from not far away. Although he exuded the might of an emperor, he looked a little wretched. It was the Purple Thunder Emperor who had chased after Monk Daming earlier on. When the Purple Thunder Emperor returned and saw that Su Zimo was still standing there unscathed, his eyes were filled with killing intent. "Desolate Marshal, you're not dead yet." The Purple Thunder Emperor hollered with a cold expression and was about to attack. "Purple Thunder Emperor, wait!" A patriarch of Zephyr Thunder Palace rushed forward hurriedly and blocked in front of the Purple Thunder Emperor. With a horrified expression, he shouted, "Run, run!" The 3 emperors, Breaking Sea Emperor, North Firmament Emperor and Malevolent Emperor, have been killed by Desolate Marshal. Ah! The Purple Thunder Emperor was shocked. He swept his gaze and caught sight of the remains on the battlefield. The corpse of the Breaking Sea Emperor was lying not far away and was not cold yet. Although the corpse of the North Firmament Emperor was already torn apart, his identity could still be vaguely recognized from his torn clothes. Although the Malevolent Emperor was minced into a blood mist by the human emperor's Dermic edict, the aura of the yellow springs that he had comprehended condensed in midair. At the side, Su Zimo put away the storage bag of the Malevolent Emperor with a calm expression and did not even look up at him. Du was long gone. Pest. The Purple Thunder Emperor's heart skipped a beat. Without hesitation, the Purple Thunder Emperor did not dare to linger and fled into the distance in silence, afraid that he would encounter a calamity. "Purple Thunder Emperor, wait for me!" The Patriarch of Zephyr Thunder Palace chased after him hurriedly as well. The Purple Thunder Emperor ran until he was 1,000,000 kilometers away, and confirmed that there was no danger before stopping with a bewildered expression. A moment later, the Patriarch of Zephyr Thunder Palace from earlier on caught up. "What's going on?" The Purple Thunder Emperor had run too hurriedly earlier on and did not have time to ask. At that moment, he asked hastily, "Is the Mystic Emperor back?" "No, it was Desolate Marshal." The Patriarch of Zephyr Thunder Palace panted slightly. "Impossible." The Purple Thunder Emperor said resolutely, "Desolate Marshal is only at the late-stage Mahayana realm. How can he kill 3 emperors?" The human emperor's Dermic edict in Desolate Marshal's hands. The Patriarch of Zephyr Thunder Palace described everything that happened completely. Although the Purple Thunder Emperor was not present, he still felt a sense of trepidation and broke out in cold sweat when he heard that. The Purple Thunder Emperor had yet to realize that the killing word art on the human emperor's Dermic edict had already dissipated and posed no threat to him. "Purple Thunder Emperor, where are the Frost and Killing Emperors?" The Patriarch of Zephyr Thunder Palace asked. "Didn't the 3 of you chase after that person together? Just what was the background of that person?" At the mention of that, the Purple Thunder Emperor's expression darkened as he grit his teeth. "Don't mention this matter any longer. We didn't manage to catch up to that person." "Ah." The Patriarch of Zephyr Thunder Palace was shocked and said instinctively, 3 emperors failed to catch up to a late-stage Mahayana Patriarch. More than that. The Purple Thunder Emperor clenched his fists and ground his teeth so hard that they cracked. He said hatefully. That person even managed to sabotage and kill the Frost Emperor. The killing Emperor also escaped with severe injuries. I was the only one who managed to escape in time, thanks to my movement technique. How could that be? The Patriarch of Zephyr Thunder Palace was dumbfounded. The Purple Thunder Emperor suppressed the rage in his heart for a moment before saying, "This person specializes in concealment and illusion techniques. Coupled with his extremely fast movement technique, he will disappear from our senses the moment we're not careful." We chased all the way and arrived at some ruins. That person was a little tired and seemed to be exhausted. The three of us went forward and released our supreme divine powers, prepared to kill that person. Unexpectedly. At that point, a look of fear flashed through the Purple Thunder Emperor's eyes. To think that the space around the ruins would be unstable. When we released our supreme divine powers, we attracted a divine power storm. Ah! The Patriarch of Zephyr Thunder Palace exclaimed. He could guess what happened next without the Purple Thunder Emperor elaborating. The Frost Emperor was buried in the divine power storm and the Killing Emperor fled with severe injuries. Only the Purple Thunder Emperor managed to escape, albeit in a sorry state. You don't have to be angry. At the very least, that person died inside as well. The Patriarch of Zephyr Thunder Palace consoled. Die, my ass! When he heard that, the Purple Thunder Emperor was so angry that he nearly spat out a mouthful of blood. The thing that lured us over was just a clone of that person. We lost him somewhere in between. The Patriarch of Zephyr Thunder Palace opened his mouth with a numb expression. The fact that Desolate Marshal summoned the human Emperor's Dermic Edict and killed 3 emperors earlier on was already a huge blow to him. However, he could still accept it. After all, that was something left behind by the eternal human Emperor. However, that white-robed cultivator made use of a clone to toy with 3 emperors. In the end, he even sabotaged and killed an emperor while severely injuring another. Just who was that person? The Patriarch of Zephyr Thunder Palace could not help but recall the unfinished battle that this person had agreed on with Desolate Marshal before he left. Perhaps, the outcome of that battle might not have been decided yet. Chapter 1687. Emperor Desolate Marshal. Chapter 1687. Emperor Desolate Marshal. Beneath the divine power ranking, Su Zimo bowed slightly to the Chess Emperor and bid farewell to Lin Xuanji, Demonis Ji and the others before leaving. Many patriarchs looked at Su Zimo's back view with emotional expressions. Everyone knew in their hearts that the moment Desolate Marshal reappeared, he would definitely become an emperor. There would be no one in the ancient battlefield who could pose a threat to him. The era of Desolate Marshal in Tianhuang mainland had arrived. Although Su Zimo had left, many Mahayana patriarchs were still gathered beneath the divine power ranking, and the fight for the divine power ranking was not over yet. Apart from the rank 1 spot, there would be an intense battle for the other spots. However, with the previous battle, the fights for the other spots on the divine power ranking became a little boring. Peace returned to the ancient battlefield. Su Zimo found a secret place and set up many formations and restrictions, preparing to comprehend divine powers. Right now, he was only at the late-stage Mahayana realm. Even with the human emperor's inheritance, it was impossible for him to comprehend supreme divine powers directly. As the rank 1 of the divine power ranking, apart from inheriting a supreme divine power, he also inherited 36 greater divine powers. Su Zimo was prepared to comprehend all the greater divine powers and reach the perfected Mahayana realm first. The comprehension of divine powers was gradual and could not be done overnight. For example, if one wanted to comprehend the supreme divine power, everlasting vitality, they would first have to comprehend the greater divine power, greater healing technique. One could only comprehend everlasting vitality when their comprehension of the great healing technique was at its limits. Many supreme divine powers were condensed from many lesser and greater divine powers. Unless one comprehended those lesser and greater divine powers, it was impossible for them to comprehend the supreme divine powers directly. Time flew. In the blink of an eye, almost 1,000 years had passed since the 10,000 race meet. For the past 1,000 years, the 10,000 races of Tianhuang mainland coexisted. Although the territory that belonged to the human race had shrunk significantly, due to the legacy of the martial Dao, the number of human cultivators increased and many sects and factions rose. All living beings in the world could cultivate. The vow that Su Zimo made in front of his older brother, Su Hong, in the ruins of Yen country had been fulfilled. If this continued, the human race would welcome an incomparably glorious cultivation era in less than 10,000 years. The fortune of the human race had already begun to reverse. Although there were occasional fights between the 10,000 races in Tianhuang mainland, they were not major events and were all under control. In a secluded secret chamber in the ancient battlefield, the light was dim without much illumination. Suddenly, a bedazzling divine light suddenly shone in the secret chamber. It was a person's eyes. Su Zimo opened his eyes slowly and the divine power in his body surged, almost reaching a critical point. For the past few hundred years, he had already comprehended all 36 greater divine powers on the divine power ranking. Not only that, he even obtained some cultivation techniques for divine powers from the storage bags of the Malevolent Emperor, North Firmament Emperor and the others. Right now, he had already comprehended more than 50 greater divine powers. He had already broken through to the perfected Mahayana realm 300 years ago. Later on, he was in no hurry to comprehend supreme divine powers. Instead, he continued to lay a good foundation and comprehend as many greater divine powers as possible. It was only today that Su Zimo sensed an opportunity. He had many inheritances of supreme divine powers. However, be it the Paramitha Bridge or the Killing Word Art, they came from external sources. There was only a supreme divine power that was nurtured in the creation Green Lotus. Everlasting vitality. To be precise, Su Zimo did not even have to comprehend that supreme divine power. As his Green Lotus true body grew, comprehending that supreme divine power came naturally. That was because he was already one with the creation Green Lotus. Today, Su Zimo was prepared to become an emperor. Su Zimo closed his eyes once more and various comprehensions of everlasting vitality flowed through his mind. If anyone was beside him, they would be shocked to discover that Su Zimo had already vanished and in his place was a jade green lotus. The lotus stem was upright and the lotus leaves were huge and crystalline. The veins on them were clear like bloodlines. There was a pink flower bud on the lotus stem. The green lotus swayed slightly and emitted a green glow, illuminating the entire secret chamber like daylight. The entire void was like a lake with ripples. An unknown period of time passed. Suddenly, the green lotus trembled slightly. Although it was incredibly small, it shone with a green glow and released an extremely vast power. The pink flower bud on the lotus stem blossomed. The petals opened up one after another, and the entire process was incomparably breathtaking. There were a full 8 circles of 72 lotus petals. The moment the lotus blossomed, a tremendous amount of life force spread in all directions. A Tao being sat in the middle of the lotus. The person had delicate features and black hair that draped over his shoulders. He had a smile on his face and his skin was as tender as a newborn baby with a faint glow. In fact, that person exuded a faint fragrance. The fragrance was very natural and relaxed. Boom! Boom! A boundless power surged into Su Zimo's head and baptized his body, bloodline and even the black-haired essence spirit. Su Zimo's aura rose rapidly. The power of a supreme divine power surged into his body and he underwent a complete transformation. At the same time, many patriarchs and emperors broke out of seclusion in the ancient battlefield and looked over. This aura! Someone became an emperor? A few patriarchs gathered with bewildered expressions. Look over there! Someone pointed into the distance. Initially, there was a desert in the distance. However, right then, countless vegetation grew wildly in the desert. In the blink of an eye, the desert turned into an oasis. Everlasting vitality. A patriarch said sternly, only the supreme divine power, everlasting vitality, could possess such immense power. This was not the only place. Such a shocking scene was happening everywhere in the ancient battlefield. In the endless forest, the branches of countless ancient trees extended and some trees that were on the brink of death were revived. Demoness Ji's face was pale as she opened her eyes. A few days ago, she was assassinated by an emperor of hidden death sect and was severely injured. She used the exquisite steps to barely survive and was recuperating in seclusion. At that moment, a tremendous amount of life force surged into her body. Her injuries were healing at a visible speed. Even her essence spirit's injuries were nourished by a green aura, and it was only a matter of time before they recovered. Demoness G could not help but laugh and mutter, "Zimo, is that you? You have to be careful. After all these years, Du has comprehended another supreme divine power. He has already comprehended 3 supreme divine powers, and he's comparable to the Mystic Emperor. Right now, he's searching frantically for you. He's not the only one. I heard that he even invited an emperor of Hidden Death sect." Chapter 1688. Buddha Dragon Elephant. Chapter 1688. Buddha Dragon Elephant. In the ancient, the supreme divine power of everlasting vitality descended and all living beings grew. Isn't this commotion way too great? A patriarch was secretly speechless. I've also heard of people who became an emperor by comprehending everlasting vitality. However, there has never been such a great impact. Another Mahayana patriarch said, "Desolate Marshal is the creation Green Lotus after all and is a god of the Flora race. It's only logical that he would have such a phenomenon." Heh! Right then, a patriarch at the side smiled. Although Desolate Marshal is now an emperor after comprehending everlasting vitality, he's not that powerful. Everlasting vitality is only a healing supreme divine power at the end of the day. What do you know? A patriarch at the side sneered. Although everlasting vitality is a healing divine power, possessing the supreme divine power is almost equivalent to possessing an undying body. Everlasting vitality does not only heal the injuries in one's body. Once circulated, that divine power can recover expended blood chi and essence spirit in a short period of time. Ah! The patriarchs at the side were shocked. This meant that only an extremely terrifying power was enough to kill Desolate Marshal. Otherwise, it would be difficult for Desolate Marshal to die with everlasting vitality. Boom! Boom! Right then, another vibration sounded from a corner in the west. An even more domineering power burst forth from the west and swept through the massive ancient battlefield, attracting the gazes of countless experts. Roar! One after another, divine dragons appeared in the skies of the west and danced in midair. They reared their heads and howled into the skies, letting out a series of dragon roars that shook the world. What's going on? Why would a dragon appear in the ancient battlefield? This should be a divine dragon conjured by some supreme divine power. Could someone else have become an emperor? Moo! Right then, under the high-pitched dragon roar of the west, another deep and powerful roar burst forth that was not weaker than the dragon roar. Under the gazes of many patriarchs, many divine elephants appeared in the western firmaments. They swayed their massive bodies and walked in the air, flinging their trunks and crying into the skies. Divine dragons and elephants had appeared. The firmaments in the west trembled slightly against the might of the many divine dragons and elephants. What supreme divine power is that to be able to conjure such powerful living beings? Many patriarchs were moved. Suddenly, Om, Ma, Ene, Pa, Mi, Hum. In the west, under the dragon and elephant roars, another sacred Sanskrit sound echoed endlessly. Although it was thousands of kilometers away, many patriarchs heard it clearly. The Sanskrit seemed to echo in everyone's ears. Many patriarchs calmed down gradually when they heard the Sanskrit. However, every single patriarch's eyes were filled with shock. Even at such a distance, that supreme divine power could affect them. Immediately after, many patriarchs witnessed an incomparably shocking scene. In the western firmaments, tall figures appeared one after another surrounded by divine dragons and elephants. Wearing monk robes, their heads emitted mysterious halos as they sat on lotus platforms that floated. Buddhas had descended. Those Sanskrit words were chanted by the ancient Buddhas. Even the emperors in the ancient battlefield were shocked, let alone them. What is that supreme divine power? I've never seen it up till this point of my cultivation. I don't think it has ever appeared in the ancient battlefield before. Which patriarch of the Buddhist monasteries has become an emperor? There doesn't seem to be any patriarch of this caliber in this generation's Buddhist monasteries. In another corner of the ancient battlefield, the Chess Emperor and Lin Xuanji faced one another and looked to the west as well. All these years, the Chess Emperor had always captured Lin Xuanji and forced the latter to play chess with him. Lin Xuanji was miserable, but there was nothing he could do. However, at that moment, both of them were attracted by the scene. Senior Chess Emperor, have you ever seen such a divine power scene? Lin Xuanji could not help but ask. Never. The Chess Emperor shook his head. That person's attainments in Buddhism have already reached the peak. Lin Xuanji pondered for a moment and his heart skipped a beat. I've read a saying in the ancient Buddha Emperor's records in our sect. The Buddha Emperor said that there's a supreme divine power in the Buddhist monasteries that contains the greater mastery of the profoundness of Buddhism. It's the strongest divine power of the Buddhist monasteries and is called the Buddha Dragon Elephant. Buddha Dragon Elephant. The Chess Emperor nodded. There's no mistake about that. It should be this divine power. To think that someone would be able to cultivate Buddha Dragon Elephant in this generation. The Chess Emperor lamented again. Even with the ancient Buddha Emperor's attainments in Buddhism, he did not manage to cultivate this supreme divine power. If the Emperor who comprehended everlasting vitality was Desolate Martial, who could this person be? The Chess Emperor asked again. It's him. Suddenly, a figure flashed through Lin Xuanji's mind and he blurted. With a look of realization, the Chess Emperor said, You mean to say, the white-robed man who was rank 1 of the divine power ranking, Solar Luna? It must be him. Lin Xuanji said, to be able to become an emperor in such a short period of time that's comparable to Brother Su, apart from that person, there's no one else. But he's not a monk. The Chess Emperor shook his head. Perhaps he was a monk in the past. Lin Xuanji hesitated as well. After all, his guess earlier on was merely his intuition without any basis. However, you've seen all the paragons of the Buddhist monasteries in this generation. There's no such person. The Chess Emperor said, even if we look back in time, for the past 100,000 years, there's probably no other Buddhist disciple with such accomplishments. Lin Xuanji nodded and said casually, that's right. If that monk from 40,000 years ago hadn't died, he might have been able to achieve it. After saying that, Lin Xuanji was suddenly stunned. Solar Luna. Ming. Daming. A crazy thought flashed through Lin Xuanji's mind. Could it be him? Lin Xuanji looked at the Chess Emperor and said sternly, Monk Daming from 40,000 years ago. That's impossible. The Chess Emperor shook his head. That person has already died for 40,000 years. Something's not right. Lin Xuanji said, Monk Daming fought against Tao Lord Bloodfiend and both of them went missing. That's why everyone thought that he was dead. However, perhaps he's not dead yet. If he's not dead, where has he been for the past 40,000 years? The Chess Emperor asked again. It doesn't make sense for him to appear after 40,000 years of silence. The Chess Emperor still could not believe it. Indeed, there's no way to explain that. Lin Xuanji said, however, I suspect that the white-robed man is Monk Daming. At the 10,000 race meet, someone once controlled the human emperor's mirror and conjured the phantom of the human emperor to help the human race. The human emperor's mirror was the treasure passed down to Monk Daming back then. The Chess Emperor frowned. But if he's Monk Daming, why did he hide his identity and cover his face with his long hair? I have no idea as well. Lin Xuanji shook his head. However, I believe that the mystery is about to be unraveled. Chapter 1689, Massive Battle. Chapter 1689, Massive Battle. All these years, Du had not given up on searching for Su Zimo. After Du escaped and calmed down, it was easy for him to understand that the killing word art on the human emperor's dermic edict had definitely dissipated and posed no threat to him. Du was not crazy. On the contrary, Du knew in his heart that this was his only chance. If he could not kill Desolate Martial before the latter became an emperor, he would die the day Desolate Martial reappeared as an emperor. He knew that Desolate Martial would definitely not let him off. In order to find Desolate Martial, he even invited the hidden emperor out. Above an oasis, Du stood in midair and looked in Su Zimo's direction with a dark expression. Desolate Martial is an emperor. There's no chance left. Du, stop. Right then, a voice sounded from the void beside him, But there was no figure. There was not a single person on the oasis, but two. However, the other person's tracks were completely fused with the world without any flaws. Hidden Death Sect. Hidden Emperor. Du shook his head. No, there's still a chance. Desolate Marshal has only comprehended a healing divine power and is of no threat to us. As long as we join forces, we'll definitely be able to kill Desolate Marshal. The Hidden Emperor shook his head gently. I'm already in my twilight years and don't want to take the risk anymore. Don't worry, Hidden Emperor. Du said, apart from us, the Corpse Emperor will attack as well. As long as we set up a trap meticulously, Desolate Marshal will definitely die. Furthermore, even if you fail, it won't affect you at all. Given your capabilities, who in the world can find you if you want to hide? Desolate Marshal is a huge treasure. If we win, we can split the treasures in his possession. The creation Green Lotus steals the creation of heaven and earth. If you can eat the lotus seeds, your lifespan might increase. After a long silence, a voice sounded in midair. All right. On the Green Lotus platform, Xueqi opened his eyes slowly. He could sense the powerful aura from the west as well. Without even checking, he knew that it must be Monk Daming. Right after he became an emperor, Monk Daming followed suit. Xueqi knew that this was Monk Daming's response to his emperor advancement. Given Monk Daming's pride, how could he be inferior to others? Xueqi stood up slowly and the creation Green Lotus transformed into rays of light that surged into his body. An incomparably powerful force reverberated within the Green Lotus true body and spewed out. Xueqi could not help but roar into the skies. After comprehending a supreme divine power, the power of a supreme divine power changed one's body, bloodline and even essence spirit significantly. The power of the Green Lotus true body had at least doubled. Under the baptism of many lesser, greater and even supreme divine powers, the creation Green Lotus truly advanced to the peak of Grade 8. Unfortunately, the creation Green Lotus had yet to break through to Grade 9. Even so, a peak Grade 8 Green Lotus true body was enough to take on an Emperor weapon head-on. Xueqi's roar was not only to vent, but also to declare war. From Demonis G's injuries, he could sense the remnant aura of Hidden Death Sect's divine powers and dermic arts. He was declaring war towards Du, the Hidden Emperor and everyone else who wanted him dead. Now that Xueqi was out of seclusion, even if Du did not take the initiative to look for him, he would look for Du and settle all his grudges. Xueqi broke out of seclusion and headed west in huge strides, not concealing his aura at all. Desolate Marshal is going to establish his dominance now that he's an emperor. Hurry and follow him. There's bound to be a massive battle. Many Mahayana patriarchs in the ancient battlefield followed closely behind Xueqi. Although their movement techniques could not match Xueqi's, his aura burst forth and green rays of light spewed from his head. The patriarchs could not be wrong as long as they chased after the green light. 4 hours later. Xueqi's eyes lit up. An extremely evil blood beam burst forth from the distant horizon and soared into the skies, clashing against his green glow. Du was here. Dong! Right then, in another direction, there was a loud bang and the ground trembled, as though someone was beating the heavenly drums. Xueqi glanced sideways. Suddenly, a tall and burly figure leaped out from the distant horizon. The figure carried a gigantic bronze coffin on its shoulder and was charging towards Xueqi. The figure did not seem like it was walking. Instead, it was leaping. With each leap, it would cross dozens of feet and land heavily on the ground before leaping up once more. The thumping sound was the sound of that person landing on the ground. Before that person arrived, Xueqi could already smell the nauseating stench of rotting corpses. Corpse Emperor. Xueqi was expressionless. Even if 10 emperors came today, he would be fearless, let alone just Du and the Corpse Emperor. So, you're Desolate Marshal. You don't look like much with your tender skin, hee. Carrying his coffin, the Corpse Emperor arrived not far away. He glared at Xueqi and grinned, revealing a row of sharp yellow teeth. Du arrived with a sanguine glow. His cultivation of the blood refinement fiend sutra had already been exposed and he no longer hid it. Are you guys the only ones? Desolate Marshal looked at the two of them with an indifferent expression and asked. The two of us are enough to kill you. Du said slowly, Desolate Marshal, do you think that you're invincible among your peers just because you've cultivated everlasting vitality? Let me tell you, you're far from that. Kill. Du hollered. He withdrew the horsetail whip from his storage bag and whipped towards Su Zimo through the void. The 3,000 silver threads seemed to have transformed into countless sharp blades that wanted to slice Su Zimo into pieces. Phew! With an indifferent expression, Su Zimo closed two fingers and conjured a sword art, slashing in Du's direction. TSK! 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 Instantly, 3,000 heaven-slaying sword chi burst forth from his sword finger and collided against the 3,000 silver threads. The moment they collided, the 3,000 silver threads were severed by the heaven-slaying sword chi. Many heaven-slaying sword chi surged against the momentum and stabbed towards Du. Swoosh! A black shadow charged over from the side and blocked the 3,000 heaven-slaying sword chi. Cling! Clang! The 3,000 sword chi struck the black shadow and the sound of metal clashing echoed with sparks. The corpse emperor at the side threw the gigantic coffin in his hands over, and blocked the 3,000 heaven-slaying sword chi. Roar! When the 3,000 sword chi collided against the ancient coffin, an extremely violent existence seemed to have been awakened as a deep and furious roar sounded from within. Boom! Boom! A tremendous force struck the coffin and sent the lid flying. A battle corpse with meat wings leaped out of the coffin. It was tall with a green face and bared fangs. Its tongue was extremely long and hung by its mouth with mucus flowing. This should be a Rakshasa corpse. Chapter 1690. Breaking Through the Grotto-heaven. Chapter 1690. Breaking Through the Grotto-heaven. Su Zimo was momentarily stunned. Even he had not expected that the corpse emperor would refine a Rakshasa into a battle corpse. Hee hee. The corpse emperor laughed oddly. Desolate Marshal, I found this battle corpse in a ruin in the ancient battlefield. Before this Rakshasa died, he was an emperor. I'm the first person in history to refine an emperor of the primordial races into a battle corpse. Su Zimo frowned. The battle corpse of an emperor of the Rakshasa race was indeed troublesome to deal with. The corpse emperor was even more smug as he roared in laughter. Desolate Marshal, even if you have extraordinary methods, you can't destroy my battle corpse. Even if you have everlasting vitality, you can't beat the endurance of my battle corpse. Battle corpses were extremely strong and invulnerable against weapons, water and fire. Furthermore, battle corpses could not feel pain at all. Even if they were injured, it would not affect them at all. More importantly, an emperor of the Rakshasa race was equivalent to an emperor of the human race who had comprehended 3 supreme divine powers. His body and bloodline were even stronger than emperors of the human race. Indeed, it would be difficult for Su Zimo to secure victory if he wasted time fighting against the battle corpse. However, he had too many methods and trump cards. Even if it was the battle corpse of an emperor of the Rakshasa race, he had nothing to fear. That's not for sure. Su Zimo looked at the smug expression of the corpse emperor and said indifferently, Let's see if your battle corpse or my human emperor's seal is stronger. Before his sentence was finished, Su Zimo took out the human emperor's seal from his storage bag and smashed it towards the incoming battle corpse. The human emperor's seal was a great weapon of the heavenly emperor that suppressed everything. Roar! The battle corpse's eyes were widened, but it did not know fear. It withdrew 2 sabers from its back and slashed towards the human emperor's seal. Clang! The 2 sabers collided with the human emperor's seal and let out an ear-piercing sound. The next moment, the 2 sabers were shattered by the human emperor's seal, turning into many shards that flew back and entered the Rakshasa battle corpse. Poof! 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 The Rakshasa battle corpse was almost riddled completely with holes by the shards. However, there was no blood spewing from the wounds of the battle corpse. There was only some sticky pus blood that flowed out, and the wounds healed quickly without affecting the battle corpse at all. Dodge! The corpse emperor shouted hurriedly, Don't fight that black seal head-on. Upon hearing the reminder of the corpse emperor, the Rakshasa battle corpse seemed indignant and continued charging towards the human emperor's seal, extending its palm. 5 sharp fingernails popped out from its fingertips like sabers and swords that shone with a cold glint. It wanted to grab the human emperor's seal. Humph! Su Zimo sneered. Even the emperors of the god and barbarian race would not dare to take on the human emperor's seal head-on, let alone an emperor of the Rakshasa race. Bang! The moment the Rakshasa battle corpse's palm collided with the human emperor's seal, it exploded and its entire arm turned into a blood mist. While the Rakshasa battle corpse could not feel any pain, it had already realized how terrifying the human emperor's seal was. The meat wings behind it flapped and it transformed into a dark streak of light, escaping far away. Although the Rakshasa emperor was refined into a battle corpse, its movement technique retained the characteristics of the Rakshasa race and it was agile. Su Zimo controlled the human emperor's seal and chased after the Rakshasa battle corpse. At the same time, his figure flashed and he used heavenly feet and many other escaped divine powers to arrive before the corpse emperor. He said coldly, "Even if I can't kill your battle corpse, I can kill you first." Whoosh! Su Zimo extended his palm and opened his fingers, grabbing towards the head of the corpse emperor. Humph! The corpse emperor's eyes shone with a strange glint and he was fearless as he punched in reverse towards Su Zimo's palm. Bang! The fist and palm collided. The corpse emperor did not retreat at all and defended against Su Zimo's palm strike. Although Su Zimo did not release his full strength for that palm strike, not everyone could withstand it. At the very least, Du could not. To think that the body and bloodline of the corpse emperor would be this strong? Su Zimo's gaze landed on the corpse emperor's wrist. A patch of livor mortis appeared on it. Su Zimo's gaze froze. Hee hee. The corpse emperor laughed sinisterly. Have you finally realized? I'm also a battle corpse, so I'm not afraid of fighting you in melee combat. Suddenly, the corpse emperor changed tactics and turned his fist into a palm. Sharp fingernails popped out from his fingertips one after another as well, shimmering with a green glow as they dug into Su Zimo's wrist. The corpse emperor wanted to pierce Su Zimo's skin and taint the bloodline of the green Lotus true body with the poison. However, he had truly underestimated the power of the Grade 8 creation Green Lotus. Even though he was a battle corpse, his fingernails could not pierce Su Zimo's flesh and skin. On the contrary, Su Zimo channeled his blood chi and released the sound of a tsunami, pushing away the corpse emperor's palm and breaking free. Earlier on, when he arrived before the corpse emperor, he smelled the pungent stench of rotting corpses. Su Zimo did not think too much about it. He thought that it was because the corpse emperor was always accompanied by corpses and that was the reason why he had such an aura. Now, he finally understood that the corpse emperor was also a battle corpse. Initially, the corpse emperor was a battle corpse refined by a patriarch of corpse refinement cult. However, he gained sentience. However, the corpse emperor was smart and did not reveal any flaws the entire time. Eventually, he released a fatal attack and killed the patriarch of corpse refinement cult, regaining his freedom. Even so, he was merely a corpse and could not even be considered as alive. You should have died a long time ago. Su Zimo's expression was cold. Today I'll send you to hell. Chaos Essence Grotto-heaven. Right then, Du's voice sounded and a gigantic, dark black hole appeared beside Su Zimo, pulling him in with an extremely powerful suction force. After comprehending 3 supreme divine powers, this divine power of Du was even stronger than it was hundreds of years ago. However, Su Zimo's expression was unchanged within Chaos Essence Grotto-heaven. He assumed a lotus position and channeled his blood chi, as though he had vanished entirely. In his place was a jade green lotus. Break! Su Zimo hollered softly. The creation green lotus swayed and released green halos that charged at the barrier of Chaos Essence Grotto-heaven continuously. Du channeled his essence spirit wildly, wanting to stabilize Chaos Essence Grotto-heaven. One after another, the green light released by Su Zimo's creation Green Lotus was endless and was even filled with a resplendent glow. Both parties were in a stalemate. Under such circumstances, the corpse emperor could not interfere. Not only that, the Rakshasa battle corpse was still scurrying around, chased by the human emperor's seal. Even in Chaos Essence Grotto-heaven, Su Zimo could still control the human emperor's seal with his spirit consciousness. This supreme divine power could not trap him at all. This stalemate consumed a lot of energy from both parties. For Du, he had to sustain this supreme divine power continuously. After half an hour, Du finally could not hold on any longer. In Chaos Essence Grotto-heaven, The power of the creation Green Lotus had just dried up when a stream of everlasting vitality surged and recovered him. If this continued, Du would be exhausted to death. Boom! The creation Green Lotus finally broke through the Grotto-heaven and illuminated the mountains and rivers. Chapter 1691. Purification of the Corpse Emperor. Chapter 1691. Purification of the Corpse Emperor. Even if Du comprehended 3 supreme divine powers, he would not be able to suppress a peak grade 8 creation Green Lotus. Chaos Essence Grotto-heaven shattered and Du shuddered. With a terrible expression, he turned to flee without hesitation. Putting away the human emperor's seal, Su Zimo channeled heavenly feet and burst forth with boundless golden light, ethereal wings, Zephyr Thunder escape and other escape techniques. His speed increased exponentially as he chased after Du. The Rakshasa battle corpse was chased everywhere by the human emperor's seal. Now that it was finally free from the threat, it stood on the spot and did not chase. The corpse emperor hesitated for a moment and chose to give up as well. Desolate Marshal has already matured. I'm afraid no one can kill him now. The corpse emperor murmured softly and changed directions, prepared to leave this place and continue his seclusion lest he was found by Desolate Marshal. The moment he turned around, he caught sight of someone. The person wore white robes and his long hair scattered, covering most of his face. His eyes were deep and bright, as though they contained endless wisdom. This was an emperor. He had seen almost all the emperors in the ancient battlefield, but he had never seen this person before. Who are you? The corpse emperor narrowed his eyes and asked slowly. The person who will kill you. The white-robed man said indifferently. The corpse emperor's heart skipped a beat. In the ancient battlefield, there might have been top-tier emperors that lived in seclusion. Look, it's Patriarch Solar Luna. He's not a patriarch anymore. He just became an emperor. During this period of time, many Mahayana patriarchs had already rushed over and discussed when they saw that. The white-robed man was Monk Daming. Just become an emperor? The corpse emperor was relieved and sneered. So, you've only comprehended a single supreme divine power. Even Desolate Marshal can't do anything to me. Who do you think you are? Monk Daming did not argue and walked towards the corpse emperor. Rakshasa, kill him. The corpse emperor said coldly. The Rakshasa battle corpse that was enraged by the relentless pursuit of the human emperor's seal earlier on roared and lunged towards Monk Daming. Monk Daming slapped his storage bag and a small temple appeared in his palm. Tossing it forward, the temple expanded rapidly and turned ancient and mysterious. The Grand Primordium Ancient Temple. The ancient temple appeared and locked the Rakshasa battle corpse that was charging over. Thereafter, Monk Daming put away the Grand Primordium Ancient Temple without even looking at it. Ha ha ha, you're truly ignorant. How can your dilapidated temple? Suddenly, the corpse emperor could not continue. Under normal circumstances, the power of his battle corpse was enough to shatter most dermic treasures, and there were no spatial dermic treasures that could accommodate this battle corpse. The evil power in the blood of the battle corpse alone was enough to cripple many dermic treasures. However, the corpse emperor suddenly realized that his connection with the Rakshasa battle corpse had been severed. In the Grand Primordium Ancient Temple, the Rakshasa battle corpse reared its head and roared into the skies. An extremely evil aura emanated from its body as it rammed against the walls of the ancient temple continuously, causing the entire place to quake violently. Suddenly, the walls of the ancient temple lit up and emitted a divine Buddhist light. 4 tall phantoms appeared on the wall, towering and wielding different weapons. They glared at the Rakshasa battle corpse in the ancient temple with dignified expressions. The 4 Vajras of the Buddhist monasteries. As though they were alive, the 4 Vajras appeared on the wall and struck their weapons out, suppressing the Rakshasa battle corpse. Although the Rakshasa battle corpse did not have spirit consciousness, it knew how powerful they were and wanted to flap its wings to break free from the encirclement of the 4 Vajras. However, the umbrella in the hands of the infinite hearing Vajra spun and covered the skies, emitting a mysterious halos that landed on the Rakshasa battle corpse like chains. The Rakshasa battle corpse could not break free at all and was restricted on the spot. The divine dragon in the hands of the boundless vision Vajra roared and charged forward, smashing against the Rakshasa battle corpse and shattering all its bones. The strongest thing about the Rakshasa race was their speed. Their physique and bloodline could not compare to the dragon race. The Growth Vajra waved the sword in his hands and slashed forward. The Rakshasa battle corpse was sliced into pieces by the sword and fell to the ground as many pieces. The country pillar Vajra waved his pipa and the sound of metal clashing could be heard. It was as though a massive army had appeared and was charging towards the Rakshasa battle corpse with a terrifying killing intent. The massive army charged over and trampled the Rakshasa battle corpse into dust. Even if the Rakshasa battle corpse was torn apart, the corpse emperor could use a secret skill to piece it back together. However, even he could not recover sludge or dust. The battle corpse had vanished completely. Outside the ancient temple, Monk Daming had a calm expression and said indifferently, "There's no need for you to try and reconnect with your summon. That battle corpse has already been destroyed by me." "Impossible." The corpse emperor was in disbelief. Monk Daming did not explain further and strode forward. His blood chi burst forth and he channeled tsunami blood instantly, suppressing the corpse emperor with a palm strike. The corpse emperor had a menacing expression and cursed internally. "Desolate Marshal is the creation Green Lotus. Even if I can't hurt him, I can hurt you." He extended both hands and his long green fingernails popped out, grabbing towards Monk Daming's arm. Monk Daming did not dodge or avoid and continued suppressing with his palm. The fingernails of the corpse emperor touched Monk Daming's arm first. Just as he was about to thrust in, he felt the muscles on Monk Daming's arm tremble and release an extremely terrifying power. Pang, pang, pang. The fingernails of the corpse emperor's 10 fingers were snapped. At the same time, Monk Daming slapped the head of the corpse emperor. Crack. The corpse emperor's head shattered and sticky blood flowed out. The essence spirit of the corpse emperor escaped in advance and was not killed by the single palm strike from Monk Daming. Pa! Monk Daming suddenly opened his mouth and chanted Sanskrit. The entire void trembled for a moment. Under normal circumstances, it would be difficult for that Sanskrit word to cause any damage to emperors. However, secret skills of the Buddhist monasteries were the most effective against evil and filthy things like this. Furthermore, the corpse emperor's body had yet to be formed and his essence spirit was completely exposed to the Sanskrit. It almost dispersed because of that single word. Monk Daming did not chase after the corpse emperor's essence spirit. Instead, he assumed a lotus position and chanted the rebirth mantra continuously. The light on the corpse emperor's essence spirit gradually dimmed. After the rebirth mantra ended, the essence spirit of the corpse emperor was destroyed as well. The rebirth mantra purified the corpse emperor. Many Mahayana patriarchs watched from afar with emotional expressions. The 2 rank 1s of the divine power ranking back then were now emperors. To think that one of them would kill an emperor the moment he appeared. I heard that the martial emperor went to chase after the Yu emperor. I wonder how the battle over there ended. Who is the martial emperor? Desolate Marshal, of course. Desolate Marshal established the Tao and imparted martial arts to all living beings. Apart from Desolate Marshal, who else in the world can be worthy of the title of martial emperor? Chapter 1692. Slaying the Hidden Emperor. Chapter 1692. Slaying the Hidden Emperor. Su Zimo glared at Du and sped the entire way. Du's speed was at most the same as Su Zimo's, but he could not afford to waste time. To be precise, an emperor with everlasting vitality had almost endless strength. Unless he crushed Su Zimo or severely injured him with absolute strength, Du would definitely lose if a stalemate was formed. Even the Dragon Phoenix True Body could not exhaust the current Green Lotus True Body, let alone Du. The 2 of them sprinted one after another and crossed almost half of the ancient battlefield, encountering many Mahayana patriarchs along the way. Many patriarchs lamented when they saw that. Several hundred years ago, Desolate Marshal was hunted down by the Yu Emperor. To think that after Desolate Marshal became an emperor, the situation reversed instantly. The martial emperor rose too quickly. Even the eternal human emperor probably can't compare to him. I heard that the martial emperor was originally a mortal in the mortal world of Tianhuang mainland, and did not even have a spirit root. He only managed to get to where he is today because a mysterious expert changed his fate for him. What sort of mysterious expert would actually possess such methods? I don't know. Many patriarchs discussed as they chased in Su Zimo's direction. Du's speed decreased. Running with divine powers for a long time was a huge drain on his blood chi and essence spirit as well. However, Su Zimo's expression was still calm. After his essence spirit's blood chi was exhausted, it released endless vitality. When that supreme divine power was released, Su Zimo would replenish his life force continuously from this world and his blood chi and essence spirit would recover within a few breaths. The distance between the two of them was getting closer. Not far ahead was a forest. Du charged in. Su Zimo's eyes flickered. Without hesitation, he followed closely behind and charged into the forest. Looking at Du's back view, Su Zimo closed two fingers and channeled the heaven-slaying sword art, slashing forward. TSK, TSK, TSK. Suddenly, 108,000 sword chi burst forth from his fingertip, covering the skies densely. Although there were so many sword chi, all of them converged instantly and formed a sword that shone with a blinding light. A terrifying divine power burst forth. All swords are one. This was a greater divine power that Su Zimo had comprehended through the heaven-slaying sword art. The power of the 108,000 sword chi was more than doubled. Buzz! The blade quivered. The sword with a chilling killing intent transformed into a white streak of light and stabbed towards Du's back instantly. Even Du felt his heart skip a beat from the power released by that sword. Hell Blood Shield. Suddenly, Du turned around and channeled his essence spirit. Blood chi filled his body and the power of divine power surged out, forming a blood-colored gigantic shield before him. Du did not dare to be careless against that sword and released a supreme divine power to defend. This was a supreme divine power that he had comprehended after cultivating the Blood Refinement Fiend Sutra. Clang! The cold sword collided heavily against the Hell Blood Shield. Ripples appeared on the blood shield and it was almost pierced by the sword. The moment Su Zimo attacked, a stone beside him suddenly moved. Someone walked out from within. To be precise, the person did not walk out of the stone. Instead, he transformed from the stone. The person had an ordinary figure and appearance. His eyes were listless and he wielded a pitch-black sword that stabbed towards the back of Su Zimo's head. The entire process was silent. Even when that person attacked, there was no sound at all. His sword was pitch-black and did not reflect any light. His body and sword seemed to have fused into one with his surroundings. The hidden emperor had attacked. At that moment, even if someone opened their eyes or even used their spirit consciousness to sense, they would not be able to see anything. The hidden emperor used a supreme divine power, myriad transformations, to turn into a stone. At the same time, he used another supreme divine power, deceive the world, to conceal himself from the five senses of cultivators. The illusion was created because of the perfect fusion of the two supreme divine powers. Even Du, who was facing the hidden emperor, did not see the latter attack. The pitch-black sword stabbed forward, almost piercing the back of Su Zimo's head. Even if his sword could not pierce Desolate Marshal's head, the power contained by the sword was enough to penetrate Desolate Marshal's consciousness and kill his essence spirit on the spot. Even though Desolate Marshal was about to die under his sword, the eyes of the hidden emperor were still like stagnant water without any emotions. He knew very well that a single fluctuation at that moment, even mentally or through his eyes, would break through that intent and alert the other party. Without such methods, the hidden emperor would not have been able to cultivate to this realm. The moment the black sword pierced the back of Su Zimo's head, a jade-green lotus platform appeared beneath his sword. The creation Green Lotus. Clang! A crisp sound echoed when the sword struck the creation lotus platform and sparks flew. The hidden emperor shuddered and his palm went numb. Of course, the shock on his body was far less intense than the shock in his heart. Desolate Marshal was actually prepared. How was that possible? He could cheat the entire world with the two supreme divine powers he channeled. Back then, he even used this method to kill an emperor who had comprehended three supreme divine powers. Now, how could he not kill an emperor who had only comprehended a supreme divine power? Su Zimo's back was facing the hidden emperor, and a look of mockery flashed through his eyes. He did not even turn back. That was because he knew that even if he turned back now, he would not be able to see the figure and tracks of the hidden emperor.
Given the methods of the hidden emperor, it was enough to deceive the world and confuse all his senses. However, what the hidden emperor did not know was that Su Zimo cultivated a demon classic and possessed an unfathomable spirit perception. It was fine if the hidden emperor did not attack. Once he attacked, Su Zimo would sense killing intent. After missing his attack, the hidden emperor hid himself and transformed into a green leaf on the ancient tree beside him. Myriad transformations. With a single thought from the hidden emperor, he could transform and change into anything in the world. You finally appeared. Su Zimo smiled gently. If you hadn't attacked, I wouldn't have been able to find you. However, since you've already appeared, don't even think about leaving. He extended his finger and tapped his glabella gently. He withdrew a whip that shone with lightning and struck the leaf at the side. You! The hidden emperor had no choice but to attack. Although he had cultivated 2 supreme divine powers, he was helpless against Essence Spirit secret skills and could only circulate his Essence Spirit to fight. Bang! The 2 Essence Spirit secret skills clashed and the hidden emperor shuddered. He could no longer withstand the channeling of myriad transformations and deceive the world as he revealed himself. Although the spirit vanquishing whip dissipated, Su Zimo's killing move was not over yet. Swoosh, swoosh, swoosh. A green glow burst forth from the creation Lotus platform. 72 green lotus seeds gathered rapidly and turned into a green sword that slashed towards the hidden emperor. The hidden emperor channeled his second essence spirit secret skill as well to defend against the green lotus sword. However, it was destroyed by the green lotus sword the moment they collided. A sword beam flashed and entered the hidden emperor's consciousness. The hidden emperor's figure swayed and his eyes dimmed. His life force drained and he fell limply. 2 essence spirit secret skills were released in succession and the hidden emperor was dead. Chapter 1693. Puppets. Chapter 1693. Puppets. The moment the hidden emperor was exposed, Du realized that the latter was most likely doomed. The hidden emperor's methods relied on his surprise attacks. The combination of his 2 supreme divine powers, myriad transformations and deceive the world, could allow him to cheat the world and kill without a trace. However, once the hidden emperor was exposed, he could not defend against Desolate Marshal's power at all. Even Du, who had comprehended 3 supreme divine powers, could not defend against the current Desolate Marshal, let alone the hidden emperor. A peak grade 8 creation Green Lotus was even more terrifying than the primordial races. Without hesitation, Du made a prompt decision to abandon the hidden emperor and turn to flee. By the time Su Zimo killed the hidden emperor, Du had already escaped from the forest. Su Zimo sneered and released his massive spirit consciousness. Before long, he locked onto Du's location and chased after the latter. Under normal circumstances, the range of an emperor's spirit consciousness could extend hundreds of thousands of kilometers. However, Su Zimo's spirit consciousness could extend 1,000,000 kilometers away. With a single thought of his spirit consciousness, he could sense the activity in almost half of the ancient battlefield. Emperors were already the peak of Tianhuang mainland. At this point of his cultivation, Su Zimo truly felt the power to control heaven and earth, as though he could look down on all living beings. Su Zimo chased after Du and advanced. He could sense with his spirit consciousness that Du had suddenly stopped. Before long, Su Zimo caught up to him. There was someone standing in front of Du, blocking his path. However, that person did not exist within Su Zimo's spirit consciousness coverage. Monk Daming. From the looks of it, Du seemed to have just fought Monk Daming and suffered a huge loss. His face was pale and his breath carried the smell of blood. Just who are you? Du glared at Monk Daming, who was not far away, and said hatefully, "Why did you help Desolate Marshal and stand in my way?" "I'm not helping him. I want to kill you too." Monk Daming replied indifferently. "I don't know you. There's no feud between us." Du grit his teeth. Monk Daming looked at Du with a fake smile and suddenly asked, "Why? Are you secretly channeling the Blood Refinement Fiend Sutra?" Du's expression changed slightly. He could not understand how the other party could sense it the moment he started channeling the Blood Refinement Fiend Sutra. At that moment,
He did not have time to think and release the secret skill of the Blood Refinement Fiend Sutra. Blood Tribute. Du roared, and an extremely evil and strange power descended on Monk Daming and Su Zimo. Su Zimo furrowed his brows slightly. His bloodline was actually restless and almost evaporated into nothingness by that strange power. He had seen this secret skill in the Blood Refinement Fiend Sutra before. When released, the Blood Tribute secret skill could refine the bloodline of other living beings remotely and turn it into his own essence energy. It was extremely domineering and terrifying. The strange thing was that although Su Zimo did not control it intentionally, his bloodline stabilized after the slightest disturbance. Monk Daming on the other end had a calm expression as well. Du's blood tribute had no effect on the two of them at all. How could this be? Du was shocked and his eyes widened in disbelief. He could understand if Su Zimo and Monk Daming released any divine powers or secret skills to defend against his blood tribute. However, that was not the case at all. His blood tribute was completely useless against the bloodlines of Su Zimo and Monk Daming. Blood tribute. Right then, Monk Daming suddenly extended his palm and channeled the Blood Refinement Fiend Sutra as well, gripping Du gently through the void. Poof! A blood mist burst forth from Du's body instantly. The essence blood exploded and transformed into a blood beam that flew towards Monk Daming. Monk Daming opened his mouth and swallowed the blood light. At that moment, Du seemed to have aged considerably. Monk Daming released the same secret skill and almost refined Du's essence blood entirely. So, it's you. Du looked at Monk Daming and smiled bitterly. Hundreds of years ago, you were the one who stopped me from chasing after Desolate Marshal. Monk Daming remained silent as a form of acknowledgement. Fu. Du laughed with a tragic expression. So what if you kill me? You're just a puppet that's pulled by the strings. Your fate is also in the hands of others. Amazing, truly amazing. Du turned to look at Su Zimo. Initially, I wondered how capable you were. So that's all. You're just a puppet as well. Ha 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 ha. This entire world is under his control. In a flash, Su Zimo arrived beside Du and extended his palm, placing it on the top of the latter's head to extract his essence spirit. Soul-searching art. Su Zimo's eyes lit up with a strange black glow. A ball of light appeared in his palm and pitch-black chains grew on it, piercing into Du's essence spirit. Du's memories flashed through Su Zimo's mind one after another. Ever since Du started cultivating, there was no important information from the Qi condensation, foundation establishment and even the conjoint body realm. Everything was normal. However, Du's cultivation could not advance after he became a half-martial ancestor. Later on, his lifespan decreased and he was already in his twilight years with almost no chance of becoming a patriarch. One day, Du met someone. Su Zimo could not make out the person's appearance. When he focused his mind and wanted to see the person clearly, the person suddenly turned around and looked at him. It was a strange blood face that smiled at him sinisterly. Boom! Su Zimo shuddered as though he was struck by lightning and jolted awake from the soul-searching art. He looked down. Du's essence spirit was already destroyed. He still could not see the person's face clearly. Unknowingly, Su Zimo had already broken out in cold sweat. Du's final words were similar to Heavenly Secrets' final words. That made Su Zimo want to check out the secret behind it. Unfortunately, it was all for naught. You failed, right? Monk Daming was not far away and asked Su Zimo softly, as though he was not surprised by the outcome. Su Zimo nodded. Everything is about to end. Monk Daming looked into the distance and murmured softly with a conflicted expression, as though he was disappointed, relieved, expectant and guilty. Just as Su Zimo was about to ask, Monk Daming suddenly said, Right, there's something else I have to remind you. What? Su Zimo asked. Monk Daming said, There's a monster incarnate in Tianhuang mainland with a mysterious background and unknown background. However, his combat strength is extremely terrifying. Even I wasn't his match at the half-martial ancestor realm. Oh! Su Zimo pretended to be surprised. Naturally, he knew that Monk Daming was referring to the martial Dao prime body. Monk Daming raised his head and looked at Su Zimo before nodding slightly. He turned and left before long. Su Zimo stood in silence. Although the current Tianhuang mainland was relatively peaceful with the 10,000 races coexisting, Du's death today gave Su Zimo another sense of pressure. A storm was brewing. After pondering for a moment, Su Zimo turned to leave as well, prepared to enter seclusion once more to comprehend more supreme divine powers. Chapter 1694. Sea Dragon Empress. Chapter 1694. Sea Dragon Empress. Desolate Marshal was an emperor. The Yu Emperor, Hidden Emperor and Corpse Emperor were all dead. One after another, news spread to Tianhuang mainland and caused quite a stir. However, everyone knew that with Desolate Marshal, the rise of the human race was inevitable and there was even a chance for them to regain their glory of the ancient era. Dragon Bone Valley. Ancestral Dragon Ground. The Dragon Phoenix True Body assumed a lotus position in the depths of the ancestral dragon ground. In the middle of the many divine dragon tombs, he absorbed the ancestral dragon chi continuously and comprehended divine powers with his eyes closed. The cultivation techniques and secret skills of the Dragon Phoenix True Body were definitely not inferior to the Green Lotus True Body. There were many cultivation techniques and secret skills that could comprehend supreme divine powers. For example, in the Saber Emperor's inheritance, there were two supreme divine powers. One of them was the ultimate saber technique, Heavenly Slash. Heavenly Slash was a supreme divine power of the Saber Dao. When released, it was like a saber beam that descended from the skies and could kill everything in its path. The other supreme divine power was Time Stop, released by the Eternal Human Emperor. Of course, it was extremely difficult for the Dragon Phoenix True Body to comprehend those two supreme divine powers, and he did not know how much time and opportunities it would take. The most probable supreme divine powers for him to comprehend were those passed down in the mystic classic of the 12 demon kings of the Great Wilderness. Ever since Su Zimo started cultivating the mystic classic of the 12 demon kings of the Great Wilderness, he had not stopped. This cultivation technique had already fused with him. For example, if one comprehended the extreme speed divine power to its limits, they could cultivate a supreme divine power, instant transference. The Dragon Phoenix True Body had once tried to cultivate time as like a saber to the level of a supreme divine power. However, he had not made much progress after cultivating for hundreds of years. The power of time was way too difficult to comprehend. Throughout history, there were extremely few cultivation techniques related to time. If not for the Baron Dermic art and the inheritance of half-martial ancestor instant, the Dragon Phoenix True Body would definitely not have been able to create the time as like a saber greater divine power either. Among the many divine powers in the mystic classic of the 12 demon kings of the Great Wilderness, the one with the highest chance of becoming a supreme divine power was the six-tusked divine strength. The Dragon Phoenix True Body only entered the Mahayana realm after comprehending that divine power. As long as he cultivated continuously and his strength increased, he would be able to cultivate all 6 divine elephant tusks. 1,000 years ago, at the 10,000 race meet, the Dragon Phoenix True Body had already cultivated 4 divine elephant tusks. Right now, he had already cultivated the 5th. In this seclusion, he was trying to break through by cultivating the 6th divine elephant tusk. Once the 6 tusks were formed, it would definitely become a supreme divine power and the Dragon Phoenix True Body would become an emperor as well. As a taboo, his combat strength was terrifying to begin with. A perfected Mahayana was equivalent to an emperor of the human race who had comprehended 4 supreme divine powers. Once the Dragon Phoenix True Body was an emperor, his combat strength was equivalent to an emperor of the human race with 5 supreme divine powers. In the primordial era, the 3 great taboos at their peak state could dominate Tianhuang mainland and unleash a primordial war that shook history. This was the reason. There was another reason why the Dragon Phoenix True Body wanted to become an emperor as soon as possible. That was because in his consciousness, of the final 4 balls of light left behind by the mystic classic of the 12 demon kings of the Great Wilderness, 3 had already shattered and he inherited 3 innate divine powers. He had also cultivated 11 demon king phenomenons. Of the 12 demon kings, there was only 1 left. The Dragon Phoenix True Body wanted to know which demon king would be in the final ball of light and what innate divine power would be inherited. Not far away, the Chen Dragon Emperor wielded a broom and looked at the Dragon Phoenix True Body quietly with a relieved expression. After 1,000 years, the Chen Dragon Emperor looked a little older. However, he still had close to 9,000 years of lifespan. He believed that the dragon phoenix true body would definitely grow in these 9,000 years and lead the dragon race forward. Right then, a crack appeared not far away and a figure appeared, walking towards the Chen Dragon Emperor with a dragon head walking stick. It was an old lady. The old lady had white hair. Although there were many wrinkles on her face, one could still vaguely see her beauty from when she was young. "See, Dragon Empress, you're here." When the Chen Dragon Emperor saw the old lady, he smiled and nodded. "Long time no see. You look much better than before." "Yes." The Sea Dragon Empress nodded slightly in greeting as well. There were a total of 5 emperors in the dragon race. The Sea Dragon Empress was the empress of the hornless dragon lineage. "Why? What's the matter?" the Chen Dragon Emperor asked. The Sea Dragon Empress arrived beside the Chen Dragon Emperor and looked at the dragon phoenix true body not far away. After pondering for a moment, she said, "I heard that the injuries of the Golden Crow Fire Emperor and Hell Witch Emperor have already recovered." "Yes, I've heard of that news as well." The Chen Dragon Emperor nodded. 1,000 years ago, the human emperor descended and killed 4 emperors of the primordial races. Only the 2 of them managed to escape. The 2 emperors were extremely strong and were equivalent to emperors of the human race who had comprehended 6 supreme divine powers. However, it took 1,000 years for their injuries to recover. There's another piece of news that you might not know. The Sea Dragon Empress said, 3 emperors of the Rakshasa, Heavenly Eye and Bloodvine races rose and comprehended 4 supreme divine powers. The Chen Dragon Emperor's expression changed slightly. Primordial races that comprehended 4 supreme divine powers possessed combat strength equivalent to emperors of the human race that comprehended 6 supreme divine powers. They were comparable to the Golden Crow Fire Emperor and Hell Witch Emperor. 1,000 years ago, when the primordial 6 races joined forces, they only had 4 top emperors of this caliber. Now that 1,000 years had passed and the god race was isolated, the remaining 5 primordial races actually had top-tier emperors. What happened? The Chen Dragon Emperor frowned and shook his head. That's way too strange. How difficult is it for the primordial races to comprehend 4 supreme divine powers? How did 3 appear in succession in 1,000 years? I'm not sure. The Sea Dragon Empress shook her head. Perhaps these 3 primordial races were triggered after their emperors were slain mercilessly by the human emperor at the 10,000 race meet. That reason was naturally a little far-fetched. The Chen Dragon Emperor felt that there was something strange about this, but he could not figure it out immediately. The Sea Dragon Empress said, "Right now, although the 10,000 races coexist in Tianhuang mainland, it's because there's a subtle balance between the major faction. The Eternal Human Emperor killed 4 emperors of the primordial races and left the Golden Crow Fire Emperor and Hell Witch Emperor severely injured, resulting in the current situation. Now that the Golden Crow Fire and Hell Witch Emperors have recovered and the other 3 primordial races have given birth to 3 top-tier emperors, if the 5 primordial races join forces again, the balance will definitely be broken." The Sea Dragon Empress said sternly. Initially, if there was only the Golden Crow Fire Emperor and Hell Witch Emperor who were severely injured, the Chen Dragon Emperor could still intimidate them. But now, the Chen Dragon Emperor who was in his twilight years with a few thousand years of lifespan left had no chance of winning against 5 top emperors. "Humph." The Chen Dragon Emperor said coldly, "Desolate Marshal is already an emperor. If we join forces with the barbarian, Kuan and human races, the 5 races will have to pay a heavy price if we really fight to the death. If I risk my life, even the Hell Witch Emperor and the others will have to be wary. What if you die now?" Suddenly, the Sea Dragon Empress turned and smiled sinisterly at the Chen Dragon Emperor. Chapter 1695. Pain of the Dragon Race. Chapter 1695. Pain of the Dragon Race. As the Sea Dragon Empress spoke, she suddenly raised the walking stick in her hands and smashed it towards the head of the Chen Dragon Emperor without holding back. An unforeseen event happened in the ancestral dragon ground. The 2 of them were way too close. The Chen Dragon Emperor was caught off guard by that almost fatal attack. By the time he realized it, the walking stick had already smashed heavily on his head. Bang! There was a loud bang. The Chen Dragon Emperor's silver hair danced and dragon blood splattered. Roar! The Chen Dragon Emperor let out an enraged roar that shook the world and spread through the ancestral dragon ground. In fact, even the entire Dragonbone Valley could hear it clearly. The Dragon Phoenix true body shuddered. He could not be bothered to comprehend the divine power anymore, and opened his eyes suddenly. When he saw the scene not far away, his eyes widened and he had a furious expression. The Sea Dragon Empress's walking stick was smashed deeply into the Chen Dragon Emperor's head. A huge pit caved into the head of the Chen Dragon Emperor. That attack almost smashed his head entirely. Physical injuries were nothing to emperors. However, that strike almost shattered the Chen Dragon Emperor's essence spirit. The Chen Dragon Emperor had 9,000 years left to his lifespan. Although it seemed long, for an emperor of the dragon race with a lifespan of 400,000 years, it was already at the end of the road. Even if the Chen Dragon Emperor was at his peak, if his essence spirit was severely injured, he would not be able to survive, let alone the fact that he was in his twilight years. The Sea Dragon Empress was extremely decisive this time round and did not hesitate at all. The power she released destroyed the remaining life of the Chen Dragon Emperor. The Chen Dragon Emperor exerted his last bit of strength and grabbed the Sea Dragon Empress's face. His arm expanded and his palm transformed into a menacing gigantic dragon claw, wanting to kill the Sea Dragon Empress. However, the Sea Dragon Empress's reaction was even faster. After attacking, she leaped and retreated, avoiding the Chen Dragon Emperor's final attack. She grinned and the wrinkles on her face stacked together as she smiled sinisterly. Boom! 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 3 loud bangs sounded in succession in the ancestral dragon ground. The other 3 emperors of the dragon race in seclusion appeared and rushed over. Sea Dragon Empress! The Dragon Phoenix True Body's face was filled with killing intent as he roared into the skies. He transformed into his Dragon Phoenix form and 2 gigantic wings grew from his back. Dragon Phoenix wings and rock golden wings. Whoosh! The Dragon Phoenix True Body charged towards the Sea Dragon Empress and his speed was almost at its limits. Hee hee! The Sea Dragon Empress smiled and disappeared from the ancestral dragon ground in a flash. Instant transference. The Dragon Phoenix True Body missed. Long mo, stop chasing. You cough cough. The Chen Dragon Emperor's voice sounded intermittently as he coughed out blood. You won't be able to catch up. Right then, the other 3 emperors of the dragon race descended as well. When they saw that, their expressions changed. Chen Dragon Emperor. The 3 emperors of the dragon race, Burning Cloud Dragon Emperor, Fu Dragon Emperor and Nye Dragon Emperor, descended and lamented. What happened? The Nye Dragon Emperor looked at everything in disbelief. His body trembled slightly and his eyes were bloodshot as he grit his teeth and asked. That's the destiny dermic weapon of the Sea Dragon Empress. The Fu Dragon Emperor looked at the dragon head walking stick that was still stained with blood beneath the Chen Dragon Emperor's feet and said sternly. The Sea Dragon Empress did this. It was as though 2 flames were about to spew out from the eyes of the Burning Cloud Dragon Emperor as he roared and wanted to transform into his dragon form to chase after the Sea Dragon Empress. Don't go! The Chen Dragon Emperor's eyes dimmed and his breathing was shallow. Why? Raging flames burned on the body of the Burning Cloud Dragon Emperor as he roared. Why did this happen? The Chen Dragon Emperor sighed gently and the life force in his body decreased. He looked at the Dragon Phoenix True Body and murmured, You have to become an emperor as soon as possible. I'll definitely do that. The Dragon Phoenix True Body held the Chen Dragon Emperor's palm and said tragically. Ever since he returned from Divine Phoenix Island, the Dragon Phoenix True Body had been cultivating beside the Chen Dragon Emperor. If there was anything he did not understand, the latter would explain it to him patiently. If not for the Chen Dragon Emperor, he would not have been able to cultivate so quickly. In the Dragon Phoenix True Body's heart, the Chen Dragon Emperor was like his master. The Chen Dragon Emperor opened his mouth slightly, as though he had countless things he wanted to say but no longer had the chance. He looked into the distance and his gaze gradually dissipated as he spat out a few words. The catastrophe has arrived. Thereafter, the Chen Dragon Emperor closed his eyes and his essence spirit was destroyed. The final trace of life in his body dissipated as well. The phantom of a gigantic divine dragon appeared above the entire Dragonbone Valley. The divine dragon phantom circled in midair and looked down at the dragons below with deep reluctance and worry in its eyes. However, the divine dragon phantom gradually faded and disappeared. An uncontrollable sadness enveloped the skies of the Dragon Bone Valley. The dragons watched everything in a daze. Although the dragons did not know what happened, they felt extremely terrible, as though they had lost something precious. Before long, the Burning Cloud Dragon Emperor arrived in midair and was silent for a long time before saying with difficulty, "The Chen Dragon Emperor is dead." Boom! The minds of the dragons went blank. Although the dragons knew that the Chen Dragon Emperor was in his twilight years and that this day would come sooner or later, they could not accept it when they truly faced it. How can this be? This is impossible. Doesn't the Chen Dragon Emperor still have 9,000 years to live? Why is he dead now? Some dragons shouted. The Burning Cloud Dragon Emperor was silent. He did not know how he should explain this to the dragons below. The Chen Dragon Emperor had died completely unprepared in the hands of the sea-breaking Empress, in the hands of his clansmen. This would be an eternal pain for the dragon race. Ancestral Dragon Ground. The Dragon Phoenix true body had a cold expression and clenched his fists. A surge of rage reverberated through his body and he almost exploded. Roar! With a pained expression, the Dragon Phoenix true body hunched his body slightly. Suddenly, jade-white elephant tusks grew on his back. They were sharp as though they could penetrate everything. Every single divine elephant tusk possessed an extremely terrifying power. Even the Nye Dran Emperor and Fu Dragon Emperor felt a sense of shock. There were a total of 5 divine elephant tusks. However, as the Dragon Phoenix true body roared, the 6th divine elephant tusk tore through his back and grew. Boom! An extremely powerful force descended from the skies and baptized the blood chi and essence spirit of the Dragon Phoenix true body wildly. It was the greater mastery of the innate divine power of the mystic classic of the 12 demon kings of the great wilderness, 6-tusk divine strength. When the 6 divine elephant tusks were formed, the power of the Dragon Phoenix true body could increase by 6 times. Even the Nye Dragon Emperor and the Fu Dragon Emperor had to avoid it. The Chen Dragon Emperor met with a calamity and died. The immense pain and pressure allowed the Dragon Phoenix true body to cultivate the 6-tusk divine strength to greater mastery and become an emperor. The death of the Chen Dragon Emperor meant that the dragons no longer had a leader. At this moment, the Dragon Phoenix true body had to stand out. Chapter 1696. Calamity of the Kuan Race. Chapter 1696. Calamity of the Kuan Race. Roar! Right then, another loud dragon roar sounded from the depths of the ancestral dragon ground. An incomparably domineering power spread through the ancestral dragon ground. After the Dragon Phoenix true body was conferred the title of Emperor, another dragon became an emperor. Its long ran. The Nye Dragon Emperor nodded. The Fu Dragon Emperor sighed gently. It must be because of the Chen Dragon Emperor's blessings that Long Mo and Long Ran were able to break through one after another. Otherwise, the situation of the dragon race would have been extremely bad. Including the Dragon Phoenix true body and Long Ran, there were still 5 emperors of the dragon race. However, the loss of the Chen Dragon Emperor, who was the strongest in combat, was an irreparable loss for the dragon race. This meant that the balance between the dragon, Kuan and barbarian races and the other 5 primordial races was broken. At that moment, the Dragon Phoenix true body and Long Ran were still undergoing the baptism and refinement of the supreme divine power in the ancestral dragon ground. The Nye Dragon Emperor and the other 2 emperors stayed by their side and guarded. Long Ran only arrived after completing his baptism half a day later. As for the Dragon Phoenix true body, it took 3 days and nights before his aura gradually stabilized. What was up with the sea-breaking Empress? The Nye Dragon Emperor frowned and asked, could she have already joined the primordial 5 races? That doesn't make any sense. Why would she do that? The Burning Cloud Dragon Emperor shook his head in confusion. If they had not witnessed it personally, they would not have believed that the Chen Dragon Emperor was killed by the Sea Dragon Empress. Suddenly, the Fu Dragon Emperor said, the Chen Dragon Emperor mentioned a catastrophe before his death. What did he mean? The Dragon Phoenix true body was silent the entire time. When he heard that, his heart skipped a beat as he thought of a terrifying possibility. The Green Lotus true body had once read some ancient records of Enigma Palace. Starting from 40,000 years ago, there would be a catastrophe every 10,000 years in Tianhuang mainland, causing countless living beings and experts to die with rivers of blood. The Thousand Demon Tribulation 30,000 years ago. The Astral Tribulation 20,000 years ago. The Great Qian Tribulation 10,000 years ago. An invisible hand was behind all three calamities. But now, 10,000 years had passed since the Great Qian Tribulation. Could the death of the Qian Dragon Emperor be the beginning of this catastrophe? The Dragon Phoenix true body looked at the gigantic pit caved in on the head of the Qian Dragon Emperor. Suddenly he asked, how many supreme divine powers did the Breaking Sea Empress comprehend? Just one. The Nye Dragon Emperor said, it was evolved from the innate divine powers of the hornless dragon lineage. It's not right. The Dragon Phoenix true body shook his head. When I chased after her earlier on, she released instant transference. That means she must have comprehended at least two supreme divine powers. Yes. Long Ran frowned slightly and could tell that the Dragon Phoenix true body seemed to be implying something. What are you trying to say? The Dragon Phoenix true body said, even if the Sea Dragon Empress comprehended two supreme divine powers, her combat strength is still far inferior to the Qian Dragon Emperor who comprehended four supreme divine powers. Take a look. The Dragon Phoenix true body pointed at the walking stick that fell beside the Qian Dragon Emperor's feet. When this walking stick smashed against the Qian Dragon Emperor's head, the entire walking stick shattered and was completely crippled. The Qian Dragon Emperor's body was baptized by four supreme divine powers and is incomparably strong. How could the sea-breaking Empress release such powerful strength to kill him instantly? Long Ran and the others nodded. They noticed something strange as well. Even if they wanted to kill the Qian Dragon Emperor by surprise, they would require an extremely terrifying burst power. At the very least, none of them could do it. When did the Sea Dragon Empress become so strong? The Nye Dragon Emperor and the others exchanged glances. They were even more confused now. Right then, an anxious and rough shout sounded from outside the ancestral dragon ground. Long Ran! Long Ran! Hurry and come meet me! Long Ran's expression changed. It's Man Fong. Man Fong was the barbarian clan leader. I'll go out and take a look. Long Ran tore through the void and left the ancestral dragon ground, descending above the Dragon Bone Valley. Clan leader. Long Tsong had a helpless expression. He barged in and we couldn't stop him. Long Ran nodded slightly and looked at Man Fong who was panting not far away. He frowned and hollered, Man Fong, we are close, but you can't barge into the dragon race like that. What are you shouting for? Cut the crap and bring me to Senior Qian Dragon Emperor. Man Fong walked forward and grabbed Long Ran's wrist, shouting. Suddenly, Long Ran fell silent. What are you waiting for? Man Fong could not help but urge. Take me to see Senior Qian Dragon Emperor. Something big is about to happen. Right then, the Dragon Phoenix true body, Nye Dragon Emperor, Fu Dragon Emperor and Blazing Cloud Dragon Emperor walked out of the ancestral dragon ground when they heard the commotion outside. What happened? The Dragon Phoenix true body's heart sank as he asked hurriedly. When Man Fong saw so many emperors, he grit his teeth and said, something happened to the barbarian race. The mountain barbarian emperor betrayed us and killed our strongest barbarian emperor. Thereafter, he killed two other barbarian emperors and escaped from the barbarian race. His whereabouts are unknown. What? When they heard that, the Dragon Phoenix true body and the others were shocked and exclaimed. Man Fong said, of the current emperors of the barbarian race, only two are left with combat strength. The other two are severely injured and can't fight any longer. The Dragon Phoenix true body, Long Ran and the others exchanged glances with grim expressions. They had not expected that such a huge change would happen to the barbarian race in just 3 days after the Qian Dragon Emperor's death. Where's the Qian Dragon Emperor? Man Fong said. What are you guys waiting for? Hurry and inform the Qian Dragon Emperor about this and invite him out of seclusion. This is definitely a scheme of the primordial 5 races. The Qian Dragon Emperor is already dead. Long Ran sighed. Ah! Man Feng's mouth was agape and he was completely stunned. However, he said instinctively, how is that possible? Doesn't the Qian Dragon Emperor still have a few thousand years to live? Although this was a scandal of the dragon race, Long Ran still said, The Sea Dragon Empress betrayed us and severely injured the Chen Dragon Emperor, who was caught off guard. The Chen Dragon Emperor did not manage to survive. Man Feng's face was pale. To think that such a change would happen to the dragon race as well when he arrived to seek help. The Dragon Phoenix True Body seemed to have thought of something, and his expression changed. Suddenly he said, "Kuan race. Hurry and remind the Kuan race." Long Ran, Man Feng and the others reacted right away. It was definitely not a coincidence that something happened to the barbarian and dragon races one after another. There was a high chance that the Kuan race would be next. "I'll head over." Long Ran was about to move and head to the Kuan race personally. Right then, a silver beam of light shot over from the skies of the Dragon Bone Valley. Before it arrived, the silver light hollered, "Everyone disperse. Get Long Mo out. It's Lan of the Kuan race." The Dragon Phoenix True Body recognized that person right away. At the same time, the Dragon Phoenix True Body realized that something might have happened to the Kuan race. "I'm here." The Dragon Phoenix True Body welcomed her. Lan's face was pale as a sheet as she said, "Calamity of the Kuan race." Chapter 1697. Crisis of the Three Races. Chapter 1697. Crisis of the Three Races. Calamity of the Kuan race. The moment those words were said, the expressions of the emperors of the dragon race changed. "An emperor has fallen?" The Dragon Phoenix True Body asked in a deep voice. "It's not just emperors." Lan nodded with a pained expression. The two emperors, the Cloud Boat Kuan Emperor and the Tiger Kuan Emperor, suddenly went crazy and started a massacre in Biming. The Kuan race suffered countless casualties and 7 emperors died. The entire Biming was dyed red. "What?" The Nye Dragon Emperor exclaimed with a shocked expression. Even 7 emperors died. It was clear how much the Kuan race had endured in Biming. The lifespan of the Kuan race was slightly longer than the dragon race. The lifespan of an emperor of the dragon race was 400,000 years. For the Kuan race, it was 500,000 years. The foundation of the Kuan race was extremely strong as well. Although they did not have experts like the Hell Witch Emperor and Golden Crow Fire Emperor, they had more than 10 emperors. To think that more than half of them would die in this calamity. "Where's the Kuan Empress?" The Dragon Phoenix True Body asked with a frown. The Kuan Empress had comprehended 3 supreme divine powers and was powerful. She should have some way of dealing with this calamity. In order to save Carefree, the Kuan Empress died as well. Lan's expression dimmed as she whispered, "Carefree is still severely injured and unconscious." As she said that, Lan slapped her storage bag and took out a spatial dermic treasure that was filled with Biming seawater. A young man floated within with closed eyes and a pale expression. It was Su Zimo's second disciple, Carefree. "I didn't dare to leave Carefree in the Kuan race, so I brought him here." Lan said furthermore, the Dragon Bone Valley has a primordial divine spring that might be able to help Carefree. "Yes, Long Tsang. Put Carefree in the primordial divine spring and inform me immediately if anything happens." The Dragon Phoenix True Body said in a deep voice. Right now, Carefree was only at the conjoint body realm. The primordial divine spring was still effective for him. If Carefree were to enter the Mahayana realm and suffer such injuries, the primordial divine spring would be useless. The emperors of the dragon race present had grim expressions as well. The Kuan race suffered the most losses this time round. Notwithstanding the death of 7 emperors, even the Kuan Empress was dead and the taboo Kuan Pang was severely injured. It was still unknown if he could survive. The Burning Cloud Dragon Emperor frowned. "I remember that the Cloud Boat Kuan Emperor and Tiger Kuan Emperor only comprehended a single supreme divine power each. How did they cause such a huge calamity in the Kuan race?" Lan shook her head. The cultivation of the 2 emperors have increased extremely quickly in recent years, and they have comprehended 3 supreme divine powers. If the Kuan Empress had not risked her life and injured the 2 of them, the entire Kuan race would have been destroyed. Right then, Lan noticed Man Feng at the side and frowned slightly, asking, "Man Feng, why are you here as well? Could it be?" She seemed to have thought of something and did not continue. Man Feng nodded with a terrible expression. "What about the dragon race?" Yinlan looked at the Dragon Phoenix true body hurriedly. The Sea Dragon Empress betrayed us and the Chen Dragon Emperor is dead. The Dragon Phoenix true body did not hide anything either. Yinlan's body swayed slightly as though she was struck by lightning. In just 3 days, the Dragon, Barbarian and Kuan races encountered such huge changes. It's clearly someone's doing. Long Ran said hatefully. The Fu Dragon Emperor said sternly, the problem is who has the power to cause the emperors of our 3 races to betray and serve them. Could this be the catastrophe that the Chen Dragon Emperor mentioned before his death? The Burning Cloud Dragon Emperor murmured with a worried expression. Any news from the remaining 5 primordial races? The Dragon Phoenix true body suddenly asked. Suddenly Manfeng said, I heard that 3 top emperors of the Heavenly Eye, Rakshasa and Bloodvine races have appeared and their combat strength is comparable to the Hell Witch and Golden Crow Fire Emperors. Ah! Long Ran and the others were shocked. They were not around when the Breaking Sea Empress and Chen Dragon Emperor spoke about this. When they heard the news, everyone present realized the danger and implication behind it almost instantly. It must be the primordial 5 races. The Fu Dragon Emperor clenched his fists and shouted, We've encountered such huge changes but nothing happened to the primordial 5 races. Instead, top emperors were born. It's obvious who the mastermind is. Not necessarily. The Dragon Phoenix true body shook his head and looked at Long Ran at the side. Don't you find such methods familiar? You mean to say? Long Ran's heart skipped a beat. Great Chen catastrophe. Yes. The Dragon Phoenix true body nodded. It's not only the Great Chen catastrophe. The 1,000 Demon Tribulation 30,000 years ago, and the Astral Tribulation 20,000 years ago were the same. It all happened without any warning. That blood face. Long Ran's eyes burned with rage as he grit his teeth. What blood face? The Burning Cloud Dragon Emperor and the others asked in confusion. The mastermind behind my son's death and the Great Chen catastrophe is most likely someone with a blood face. Long Ran said, Long Mo once saw that blood face in Thousand Demon Valley. 1,000 years ago, I even went to Thousand Demon Valley to meet that blood face. However, I was severely injured and nearly died. You mean to say that the calamity of our 3 races this time round was caused by this blood face? The Nye Dragon Emperor still could not believe it. What does he have to be able to turn emperors against us and do such deranged things? Long Ran fell silent as well. Emperors had their pride and dignity. Let alone an emperor of the dragon race. No matter how strong the bloodface was, how could he make the Sea Dragon Empress betray them? For Long Ran and the others, even if they died, they would not do such a treacherous thing of betraying the dragon race and hurting the Chen Dragon Emperor. The Dragon Phoenix true body could not understand either. He had a vague guess but he was not certain. No matter what, since we know that the blood face is in Thousand Demon Valley, let's kill our way over and see who it is. The Burning Cloud Dragon Emperor said murderously. I'm afraid there's no chance. The Dragon Phoenix true body shook his head. What do you mean? The Burning Cloud Dragon Emperor asked. The Dragon Phoenix true body said, even if we know that someone is definitely controlling everything from behind the scenes, we don't have the time or energy to deal with it right now. Right now, we have to think about how we want to deal with the primordial 5 races. At that point, the emperors gradually calmed down. If the primordial 5 races received the news of such a huge change in the 3 races, they would definitely take action. The Chen Dragon Emperor was dead and the emperors of the 3 races suffered immense losses. If a huge battle broke out, their 3 races would definitely be doomed. What should I do? Manfeng asked. Everyone's gazes instinctively landed on the Dragon Phoenix true body. At that moment, the Dragon Phoenix true body was already an emperor and had become the strongest person in the dragon race. The Chen Dragon Emperor, Barbarian Emperor, Kuan Empress and the other emperors were dead and they had no leader. The Dragon Phoenix true body possessed a taboo bloodline, so he was the new emperor of the dragon race. At that moment, he was the only one qualified to command the primordial 3 races. Chapter 1698. Perfecting the Martial Doge. Chapter 1698. Perfecting the Martial Dao. Right then, a dragon strode forward and said in a deep voice, Emperors, a young man outside the Dragonbone Valley requests an audience with the young master. He said that his name is Tao Yao and he has something to report. The Dragon Phoenix True Body's heart sank. Tao Yao was usually guarding Pingyang Town. Could something have happened to it? Without waiting for Tao Yao to enter, he released his Dragon Phoenix wings and rock golden wings. Pushing his speed to its limits, he arrived outside the Dragonbone Valley in the blink of an eye. Long ran and the others chased after him as well. Something happened in Pingyang Town? The Dragon Phoenix True Body did not exchange pleasantries when he saw Tao Yao and asked directly. Greetings, young master. Tao Yao shook his head. Pingyang Town is fine. However, Rakshasa, you just came and sent a jade scroll for me to hand to you personally. Initially, Rakshasa, you wanted to look for the martial Dao prime body. However, the latter was not in Pingyang Town, so she left the jade scroll for Tao Yao. Tao Yao handed the jade scroll over as he said that. The Dragon Phoenix True Body received the jade scroll and injected his spirit consciousness into it, seeing the information left behind by Rakshasa Yu. There was not much information except for 2 lines of words. The demon emperors of the 8 demon regions have all chosen to submit. The primordial 5 races are prepared to join forces and wage war. At that time, the god race will be the vanguard, followed by the demon race and the primordial 5 races. We'll destroy the barbarian race followed by the dragon and Kuan races. After reading the jade scroll, the Dragon Phoenix True Body crushed it expressionlessly and the information within appeared before everyone. Everyone had ugly expressions. The moment something happened to their 3 races, the other 5 races received the news and were prepared to join forces to wage war. 10,000 years ago, the primordial 5 races suffered a huge loss. This time round, they would definitely return with wrath. What should I do? Although Man Feng was the clan leader of the barbarian race, he was flustered at the moment. The current situation was unlike before. If they did not deal with it properly, the barbarian race would be annihilated. Everyone looked at the Dragon Phoenix True Body, waiting for him to make a decision. The Dragon Phoenix True Body said slowly, "There's no other choice but to fight." Even if they knew that there might be an invisible hand masterminding the catastrophe, the primordial 3 races had no choice. They could only accept the challenge. But how do we fight? Man Feng shook his head. The difference in strength is too great. The Chen Dragon Emperor is dead and there are 5 top emperors on the other side. We can't defend at all. I'll deal with the 5 emperors. The Dragon Phoenix True Body's tone was resolute. With his Green Lotus True Body and Night Spirit, he could attempt to fight the Hell Witch Emperor and the others. Actually, if the Martial Dao Prime Body could become an emperor, the Hell Witch Emperor and the others would not be a threat. However, the Dragon Phoenix True Body had been in seclusion the entire time. Now that he was out, he had already lost contact with the Martial Dao Prime Body. Earlier on, he tried to contact the Martial Dao Prime Body as well, but there was no response. However, the difference in terms of overall strength is immense as well. The Nye Dragon Emperor side, including the God race, the other party is equivalent to the primordial 6 races. Furthermore, they have the help of the demon race, It's not impossible to fight. The Dragon Phoenix True Body said in a deep voice, "I'll contact the human race and get them to join forces with our primordial 3 races." Actually, apart from the human race, there was another faction that was not under the control of the primordial races. That was the Kunlun race under Night Spirit. The Kunlun race had just walked out of the Kunlun ruins. Apart from Night Spirit, there were no other Kunlun emperors. However, there were many patriarchs of the Kunlun race and they were a power that could not be ignored. Man Feng, return to the barbarian race immediately and use your spatial dermic treasure to move the entire barbarian race to the Dragonbone Valley. The Dragon Phoenix True Body made a prompt decision and laid the orders. Yinlan, return to the Kuan race as well and transfer them over. Their primordial 3 races were met with a calamity. If they did not join forces, they would only be destroyed one after another. The barbarian race was located in the East region. If the dragon and Kuan races were to head there, it would be easy for them to be surrounded. All right. Man Feng and Yinlan agreed without hesitation and turned to leave. Since the Dragon Phoenix True Body could not contact the Martial Dao Prime Body, he sent all the information here to the Green Lotus True Body. It was only then that the Dragon Phoenix true body recalled something and hurriedly checked on the situation in his consciousness. A look of disappointment flashed through his eyes. Although he comprehended a supreme divine power and became an emperor, the fourth ball of light in his consciousness did not shatter. There was a divine power in the fourth ball of light. If he could comprehend that divine power, the combat strength of the Dragon Phoenix true body would increase significantly. Unfortunately, there was no reaction from the fourth ball of light. In the ancient battlefield, Su Zimo woke up from his seclusion with a grim expression. What he was worried about still happened. He had already vaguely guessed that a catastrophe might descend. However, he did not expect it to come so suddenly that the primordial three races were almost forced into a corner. If the Bloodface or Bloodfiend was behind this catastrophe, the scale of this was way too great. This would be a calamity comparable to the primordial and ancient wars that swept through the entire Tianhuang mainland. Nobody would be spared. The most terrifying thing was that the Bloodface did not give the primordial three races and the human race any choice. They could only accept the challenge. Before Su Zimo entered seclusion this time round, he had communicated with the Martial Dao Prime Bodies. The Martial Dao Prime Body was in trouble. Refinement of divine powers was much more difficult than the Martial Dao Prime Body had imagined. The Martial Spirit Fire could smelt cultivation techniques and secret skills, but the speed of smelting divine powers was clearly much slower. Although the Martial Dao Prime Body had smelted some lesser and greater divine powers all these years, he had not succeeded in smelting a single supreme divine power. More importantly, the cultivation of the Martial Dao Prime Body had reached a bottleneck. The dermic formulations cultivated by the Martial Dao Prime Body were different from those of the Immortal, Buddhist and Fiend sections. He could only cultivate while deducing and perfecting the Martial Dao. But now, there was no path ahead. The Martial Dao Prime Body had to deduce and perfect the Martial Dao to pave the path beneath his feet before he could continue. Deducing cultivation techniques required an endless amount of time. The Martial Dao Prime Body gave up on smelting divine powers for the time being and chose to enter seclusion. However, in this seclusion, the Martial Dao Prime Body severed all connections and even the Green Lotus True Body and Dragon Phoenix True Body could not sense him. It was as though the Martial Dao Prime Body had vanished from Tianhuang mainland. Right then, an ancient palace that emitted the might of the Emperor Dao vaguely appeared in the firmaments of the ancient battlefield. The human Emperor's palace had descended. Before long, the storyteller walked out of the human Emperor's palace. This was the first time the storyteller had appeared after he entered the human Emperor's palace. After 1,000 years, the storyteller had changed significantly as well. Previously, the storyteller comprehended 3 supreme divine powers. After receiving the inheritance of the human Emperor's palace 1,000 years ago, the storyteller had already comprehended 4 supreme divine powers. Something has happened. The storyteller found Su Zimo right away and said with a grim expression. Even in the human Emperor's palace, the storyteller knew everything in the world. Su Zimo nodded. I'm prepared to gather the emperors of the ancient battlefield and join forces with the dragon, Kuan and barbarian races to defend against the primordial 5 races. Chapter 1699. Gathering of Emperors. Chapter 1699. Gathering of Emperors. It's difficult. The storyteller shook his head. According to my guess, there are more than 20 emperors in the ancient battlefield. Apart from Monk Kong Yun and a few other emperors of Diamond Monastery who will stand out, the other emperors will probably stand by idly. After a brief pause, the storyteller continued. There are some things that I don't mind saying directly. Although you're an emperor, your reputation is far inferior to the eternal human emperor, and it's difficult for you to command the emperors. No worries. Su Zimo said, even when the eternal human emperor appeared out of nowhere back then, not many emperors in the world submitted to him. The human emperor relied on his own strength to build his reputation and dignity. I'll walk the same path that the human emperor walked. The storyteller pondered for a moment. What plans do you have? I'll do my best to help you. I'll send a dermic edict later to gather the emperors of the human race. Su Zimo said in a deep voice, for any emperor that doesn't appear, senior, please divine their location. I'll invite them personally. There's no need for that. I can go and invite them.
The storyteller said, "Given my status, I do have some reputation. However, even if I can gather the emperors of the human race, I can't order them around. I'm Desolate Marshal." After 1,000 years, a storm rose in Tianhuang mainland once more, and the primordial 5 races want to join forces to kill the barbarian, dragon and Kuan races. If the primordial 3 races are destroyed, the human race will be in danger. As the Martial Emperor, I'm gathering all emperors and patriarchs of the human race. Please convene beneath the divine power ranking for a discussion. Su Zimo's voice spread to every corner of the ancient battlefield, and even cultivators in seclusion could hear it clearly. The patriarchs and emperors who heard the news had different expressions. Some of them had worried expressions and headed for the divine power ranking without hesitation. Some of them sneered coldly as though they had not heard anything. Amitba. Monk Kong Yun of Diamond Monastery had recuperated for 1,000 years, and his injuries had already healed. When he heard the news, he could not help but chant a Buddhist proclamation and sigh. To think that another bloodbath would break out after 1,000 years of peace in Tianhuang mainland. The Emperor of Wisdom Monastery, who was in seclusion with Monk Kong Yun, Monk Ji Wan, revealed a worried expression as well. Something must have happened to the primordial 3 races. Otherwise, the primordial 5 races wouldn't have dared to wage war rashly out of fear. That's right. Monk Kong Yun nodded. If not for the critical situation, the Martial Emperor would not have gathered the emperors of the human race. I'm worried that there's a high chance that this battle will sweep through the 10,000 races of Tianhuang mainland. Let's go. We'll move now. Monk Ji Wan said before heading to the divine power ranking with Monk Kong Yun. At the same time, emperors from all over the ancient battlefield broke out of seclusion and sped towards the divine power ranking. Given the speed of emperors, they arrived at the divine power ranking before long. Desolate Marshal stood quietly beneath the divine power ranking, waiting for the emperors of the human race. About 10 emperors arrived beneath the divine power ranking within 2 hours after hearing the message from Su Zimo. Most of the emperors did not move. Martial Emperor, tell me what happened. The Emperor of Overlord Palace could not help but ask. Why did the primordial 5 races suddenly wage war? Did something happen in between? Everyone, please calm down. Su Zimo said in a deep voice. Once the other emperors are gathered, I'll reveal this matter. The storyteller had already gone to invite the other emperors. Before long, the Purple Thunder Emperor arrived. He looked at Su Zimo expressionlessly and coldly without saying anything. He was invited over by the storyteller. Ever since the Purple Thunder Emperor was ambushed by Monk Daming a few hundred years ago, he returned to cultivate in seclusion. He only came here when the storyteller came looking for him. A while later, the Killing Emperor of 7 Kills sect descended. Back then, when the Purple Thunder Emperor, Frost Emperor and Killing Emperor chased after Monk Daming, the Frost Emperor died and the Killing Emperor escaped with serious injuries. His injuries had only just healed. After the Purple Thunder Emperor and Killing Emperor, emperors arrived one after another. Although the emperors were unwilling, they could not reject a personal visit from the storyteller and headed over. In less than half a day, all 24 emperors were present. Almost all of them were from the super sects. For example, Chaos Essence sect had another Extreme Essence Emperor after Du's death. The foundation of the super sects was undoubtedly revealed at this moment. Even the 3 aristocratic families of the South region had emperors. The Dongfang Spear Emperor. The Shiman Mirror Emperor. The Nangong Ding Emperor. The Baiming aristocratic family had just revived because of the primordial divine spring. In this generation, they did not even have a Mahayana patriarch, let alone an emperor. Su Zimo swept his gaze across the crowd. These were naturally not the only emperors of the human race. At the very least, the Saber Emperor Hermit was not in the ancient battlefield. The storyteller arrived behind Su Zimo and sent a voice transmission with his spirit consciousness. Almost all the emperors of the ancient battlefield have arrived. However, there's someone whose location I can't divine. After a brief pause, he continued, he's Solar Luna, the person who was rank 1 with you on the divine power ranking. He's also an emperor now. Don't bother about him. Su Zimo shook his head gently. Suddenly, a voice sounded in Su Zimo's mind. Brother Su, listen up. It was Monk Daming's voice.
Su Zimo was expressionless and had a calm expression. Monk Daming continued, among the 24 emperors before you, 5 of them cultivated the blood refinement fiend sutra. If you want to join forces with the primordial 3 races, you have to kill the 5 emperors. The 5 of them are the Dongfeng Spear Emperor, Shiman Mirror Emperor, Heavenly Dipper Sex Xiong Emperor, Malevolent Earth Sex Fu Emperor and Wisdom Monastery's Monk Ji Wen. I got it. Although Su Zimo's expression was calm, he was shocked internally. There were far more emperors who cultivated the Blood Refinement Fiend Sutra than he had imagined. The impact of the Blood Refinement Fiend Sutra was way too great. Even he nearly sank into this endless abyss back then. If those 5 emperors cultivated the Blood Refinement Fiend Sutra, they had to be killed. If the 5 of them were allowed to stay among the emperors of the human race in this calamity of the primordial 3 races, they might suddenly attack. At that time, the losses incurred would be unimaginable. Desolate Marshal. The Purple Thunder Emperor looked around and could not help but say, "You've just been conferred the title of an emperor. Aren't you putting on airs too much? What are you trying to do by gathering the emperors of the human race?" Let me say this first. I'm not interested in a fight between the primordial races. That's right. The Dongfeng Spear Emperor stood out as well and said in a deep voice, "Let the primordial races kill to their heart's content. It's best if it ends in an internecine outcome between them." Desolate Marshal, I don't understand. The human race is weak in this generation. Why must we be involved in this battle? The Shiman Mirror Emperor said coldly as well, "In my opinion, this has nothing to do with the human race. The wisest solution is for us to sit by and watch. You must be so nervous because you have a clone in the dragon race, Desolate Marshal." Chapter 1700, Commander of Emperors. Chapter 1700, Commander of Emperors. You're wrong. The storyteller shook his head. Everyone, you're all smart people. How can there be an intact egg when the nest is overturned? If the barbarian, dragon and Kuan races are destroyed, we humans will be next. Some emperors remained silent. In reality, anyone who could cultivate to this point could naturally see the situation clearly. However, they had to endure countless hardships to cultivate to this point. At their peak, they had a chance to attempt tribulation transcendence and ascend to become immortals, heading to the legendary immortal world. However, if they were to join the battle against the primordial 5 races, they would no longer have control over their fates. Su Zimo did not say anything. He believed that most cultivators would understand this logic, let alone emperors. The reason why those emperors hesitated and refused to stand out was mainly because they were worried that they would die in the battle. To be fair, if they were to ascend and leave, what did the humans of Tianhuang mainland have to do with them? Once they ascended to the upper world, these emperors wouldn't even care about their sex, much less the humans of Tianhuang mainland. For emperors, ascending to immortality through tribulation transcendence was their only pursuit. Therefore, cultivators with higher cultivation realms such as patriarchs and emperors rarely entered Tianhuang mainland to bother about the fights between the major sects and factions. There was only a single person like the eternal human emperor who cared about Tianhuang mainland even after ascending to the upper world. Monk Kong Yun said, "Actually, it's not just because of the implicated consequences. At the 10,000 race meet, the dragon race stood out and helped us. If not for the Chen Dragon Emperor's deterrence of the primordial 5 races, we might not have been able to coexist for the past 1,000 years. Now that the dragon race is in trouble, how can we ignore it?" Suddenly, the Sword Emperor of this generation asked, "Why would the primordial 5 races suddenly attack when the Chen Dragon Emperor is alive? Are they really going to fight to the death?" "That's because the Chen Dragon Emperor is already dead." Su Zimo did not hide anything and recounted everything that happened in the past few days in detail. All the emperors present had grim expressions. The Chen Dragon Emperor is already dead. Including the Hell Witch Emperor and the Golden Crow Fire Emperor. How are we going to fight against 5 emperors who have comprehended 4 supreme divine powers? In my opinion, let's forget it. Even if we stand out and help the primordial 3 races, we won't be able to defend against the combined might of the primordial 5 races. Initially, the Sword Emperor and the others were moved. However, when they heard the news, they gave up. Su Zimo smiled. Do you guys think that you can escape a calamity by hiding in the ancient battlefield? There was another important reason why the emperors did not want to interfere. Because the emperors of the primordial races could not enter the ancient battlefield, their survival was ensured. What do you mean? The Sword Emperor asked with a frown. Su Zimo said indifferently, the Chen Dragon Emperor, Kuan Empress and Barbarian Emperor were killed in their ancestral grounds. They died in the hands of their own clansmen, not outsiders. Can you guarantee that you won't die in the ancient battlefield? When they heard that, the emperors present felt their hearts skip a beat. They looked around and gradually distanced themselves with wary expressions. In other words, Su Zimo was implying that some of them might go crazy and kill other emperors of the human race. It was difficult to determine life and death between emperors if they were to fight openly. However, it was a different story if the emperors were ambushed while they were unprepared. Martial Emperor, what do you mean by that? Monk Jiwen asked. You mean to say that an emperor among us betrayed the human race? That's unlikely, right? Su Zimo did not reply and continued. Also, there's something else that I'm sure you guys haven't noticed. The power of the restriction seal left behind by the human emperor in this ancient battlefield is gradually weakening. What? The expressions of the emperors of the human race changed. The reason why they could cultivate here without any reservations was because of the human emperor's restriction seal. The emperors of the primordial races could not enter, and this was their final refuge. If the human emperor's restriction seal weakened continuously, they would be exposed to the emperors of the primordial races as well. The human emperor's restriction seal has never dissipated throughout history. Why would it suddenly weaken in this generation? The Extreme Essence Emperor revealed a suspicious expression and frowned. Desolate Marshal, don't spout nonsense. Su Zimo sneered. 1,000 years ago, Senior Human Emperor descended upon Tianhuang mainland and broke through the barrier of this world. Because of that, heaven and earth is now imperfect and its laws are in chaos. Senior Human Emperor once said that even he doesn't know the consequences of this. However, one of the current consequences is that the power of the spatial seal in this ancient battlefield is weakening continuously. As long as you guys use your senses to detect, you'll naturally know if I'm telling the truth. Before Su Zimo could finish, some emperor of the human race had already released their spirit consciousnesses to check out the restrictions of this world. The expressions of some emperors turned extremely terrible. Right now, there were only two options before them. They could either follow Desolate Marshal and join forces with the Dragon, Kuan and Barbarian races to fight against the Primordial 5 races. Otherwise, they could wait for the Dragon, Kuan and Barbarian races to be destroyed. By then, the emperors of the Primordial 5 races would come knocking and kill them. Tribulation Transcendence was extremely important, and nobody dared to attempt it without complete preparations. The heavenly tribulation was no ordinary power. If one could not withstand it, their souls would be destroyed on the spot without a chance for their essence spirits to escape. Monk Kong Yun said, I agree to join forces with the dragon race. He stood out as he said that. I agree too. Monk Jiwen followed closely behind. The emperors of Snowdrift Valley, Overlord Palace and more than 10 others stood out as well. The Sword Emperor and the others exchanged glances and made up their minds. Right now, there were only two options. Either take the initiative to fight for a sliver of life or wait for death. The Sword Emperor said in a deep voice, we can join forces with the dragon race. However, I don't think everyone is convinced if you're going to be the commander, Martial Emperor. The Dongfeng Spear Emperor sneered as well. Desolate Marshal, you've just been conferred the title of an emperor and comprehended a single supreme divine power. Furthermore, it's everlasting vitality that doesn't have much lethality. All the emperors present are more qualified than you to be the commander of the various emperors. The Martial Emperor inherited the title of the Human Emperor, and he's the Human Emperor of this generation. I'll assist the Martial Emperor with all my might. The storyteller said in a deep voice. The storyteller had comprehended 4 supreme divine powers. At that moment, he chose to submit to Su Zimo. That was an extremely strong support. Hee hee. The Sheman Mirror Emperor laughed oddly. The Mystic Emperor is the successor of the Human Emperor's palace, and naturally has to listen to his orders. However, we have nothing to do with Desolate Marshal. It's truly laughable for someone who has just become an emperor to want to command the other emperors.
Although the martial emperor had just been conferred the title of emperor, he killed the Yu emperor and hidden emperor when he was conferred the title.
Who can compare to his combat strength? The emperor of Snowdrift Valley could not help but speak up for Su Zimo. Not necessarily. The Fu emperor of Malevolent Earth Sect said sinisterly, I want to spar with a martial emperor and test his capabilities. Chapter 1701. Massive Battle. Chapter 1701. Massive Battle.
Fu Emperor, I remember that you've only comprehended one supreme divine power as well.
The Emperor of Overlord Palace burst into laughter. Your combat strength is even inferior to mine. How can you fight against the martial emperor?
The Fu Emperor's gaze was cold as he said icily, Battle Emperor, don't be so arrogant.
Be careful not to bite your tongue.
Humph.
The Battle Emperor of Overlord Palace sneered. Since you want to fight, I'll accompany you.
There's no need.
Right then, Su Zimo suddenly said, apart from the Fu Emperor, anyone else who wants to fight me can step forward. I, Desolate Marshal, will take them all.
How arrogant.
The Dongfeng Spear Emperor walked out slowly with a disdainful expression.
I'll do it. Count me in.
The Shiman Mirror Emperor stood out as well. I want to test out the capabilities of the Martial Emperor as well.
I hope that you won't disappoint me.
The Xiong Emperor of Heavenly Dipper Sect smiled gently and cupped his fists toward Su Zimo. Initially, the Sword Emperor and the others wanted to stand out as well. However, when they saw that, the other emperors frowned slightly and retreated. As emperors, they did not want to bully with numbers given their status. In the blink of an eye, 4 emperors stood out. These 4 emperors were the people who cultivated the Blood Refinement Fiend Sutra mentioned by Monk Daming. Su Zimo's gaze shifted to Monk Ji-wen. Ji-wen, you're the only one left. Come along. Monk Ji-wen was the 5th emperor to cultivate the Blood Refinement Fiend Sutra. However, he hid it well and even took the initiative to stand on Su Zimo's side earlier on. If not for Monk Daming's reminder, Su Zimo would not have thought of Monk Ji-wen. Monk Ji-wen was slightly stunned. There's no need for me, right?
In my heart, you are indeed qualified to be the commander of the emperors.
I'll listen to your orders as well.
Even if you don't come forth, I'll look for you later on.
Su Zimo said expressionlessly. Monk Ji-wen pretended to be confused and smiled gently.
If you require anything, Martial Emperor, I'll be ready to accede at any moment.
Monk Kong Yun was puzzled and glanced at Monk Ji-wen beside him, not understanding why Su Zimo would suddenly target the latter. The storyteller was the only one in deep thought. He believed that Su Zimo's actions would not be without reason.
Martial Emperor, do you need my help?
The storyteller sent a voice transmission secretly.
There's no need.
Su Zimo sent a voice transmission. I happen to want to use them to temper my divine powers. The storyteller's eyes lit up. He could tell that Su Zimo had comprehended the obscurity of a supreme divine power. However, he was missing an opportunity and a spark of inspiration. Su Zimo wanted to make use of those emperors to break through. The emperors retreated. In the blink of an eye, there were only 5 people left beneath the divine power ranking. Su Zimo stood in the middle with the Xiong Emperor of Heavenly Dipper Sect, the Fu Emperor of Malevolent Earth Sect, the Shiman Mirror Emperor and the Dongfeng Spear Emperor in 4 directions, surrounding him. The Xiong Emperor of Heavenly Dipper Sect slapped his storage bag and summoned a sword that shone with resplendent starlight. The sword trembled and a boundless sea of stars seemed to form around it, mysterious and vast.
The sword exuded the might of the Emperor Dao. This was a true Emperor weapon.
Suddenly, the storyteller frowned. In his memories, the Xiong Emperor of Heavenly Dipper Sect comprehended 2 supreme divine powers and could be considered as an expert among the emperors of the human race. However, there was no way 2 supreme divine powers could refine such a powerful emperor weapon. Swoosh! The sword flew out of his hands and tore through the air. Instantly, the boundless sea of stars converged and returned to the sword. The sword transformed into a streak of starlight and arrived before Su Zimo instantly. At the same time, the Fu Emperor of Malevolent Earth Sect attacked. The Fu Emperor withdrew a dark golden saber that emitted a sinister and cold aura. His figure flickered erratically.
However, in the blink of an eye, he arrived beside Su Zimo, and his movement technique was not inferior to the Emperor weapon of the Xiong Emperor of Heavenly Dipper sect. Die!
The Dongfang Spear Emperor leaped into the air and raised his hands above his head. Gripping a heavy and pitch-black spear in both palms, he smashed it towards Su Zimo's head. Almost at the same time, the Shiman Mirror Emperor attacked. In his palm was an ancient bronze mirror that shone towards Su Zimo. Swoosh! A white light enveloped Su Zimo, emitting a mysterious power. The power of the ancient bronze mirror transformed into white chains that wrapped around Su Zimo tightly. The four emperors attacked at the same time. At the level of an emperor, they had experienced countless life and death battles. Even if they had never joined forces before, their first coordination was flawless. They engaged in melee and ranged combat and even restricted Su Zimo's figure with secret skills. Su Zimo was instantly suppressed. The emperors present were shocked. What's going on? The Battle Emperor of Overlord Palace frowned and clenched his fists. How is this a spar? Are they trying to kill the martial emperor?
The combat strength of the four of them is already so strong.
The Sword Emperor narrowed his eyes as well. The four of them seem to be much stronger than before. They don't seem like they've only comprehended one or two supreme divine powers.
All the emperors present were secretly shocked. If they were in Su Zimo's position, none of them would be able to escape unscathed against such an attack.
Most likely, only the Mystic Emperor who had comprehended four supreme divine powers could escape. All right. Right then, Su Zimo's eyes lit up and he did not dodge or avoid.
With a loud shout, he channeled his blood chi and his aura rose to its peak instantly.
Boom, boom, boom. The sound of a tsunami surged. Immediately after, a jade-green creation green lotus soared into the skies behind him.
It swayed gently and emitted a green halo that filled the skies.
Crack, crack, crack. The shackles on Su Zimo's body were broken by the creation green lotus the moment they were formed. The jade-green lotus soared into the skies and struck the spear of the Dongfang Spear Emperor that descended from the skies with a loud bang. Boom! When Su Zimo's bloodline phenomenon collided with the pitch-black spear, the world trembled and the weather changed. The jade-green creation green lotus swayed slightly and the green halo was dispersed, almost shattered by the Dongfang Spear Emperor's attack. The storyteller's gaze froze as he murmured, 3 supreme divine powers.
The power released by the Dongfang Spear Emperor earlier on was definitely not at the level of merely comprehending a single supreme divine power.
The other emperors noticed this as well. After not seeing him for so many years, the Dongfang Spear Emperor had already comprehended 3 supreme divine powers. On the battlefield, the starlight of the Xiong Emperor of Heavenly Dipper sect descended. Su Zimo reached out and grabbed the starlight bare-handed. You must have a death wish. A cruel glint flashed through the eyes of the Xiong Emperor. He believed that the starlight was enough to penetrate Desolate Marshal's palm. Nobody knew that he had already comprehended 4 supreme divine powers. Poof! True enough. A blood beam flashed and starlight penetrated Su Zimo's palm, piercing towards his glabella. Chapter 1702, Starfalls. Chapter 1702, Starfall. Du comprehended 3 supreme divine powers and the Green Lotus True Body was barely able to take him head-on. But now that the Xiong Emperor had comprehended 4 supreme divine powers, he could already penetrate the flesh of the Green Lotus True Body. Su Zimo had merely comprehended 1 supreme divine power. There was still a lot of room for improvement for the Green Lotus True Body. For every supreme divine power comprehended, a powerful divine power would surge into his body, baptizing his flesh, tendons and bones and tempering his essence spirit. Although both parties were emperors, the difference in their cultivation realms was immense. Clang! However, just as the starlight was about to strike Su Zimo, a green light shone from his glabella and a jade-green lotus platform flew out, colliding heavily against the starlight. Sparks flew. The dermic treasure sword of the Xiong Emperor of Heavenly Dipper sect reverted to its true form and was sent flying. The power of the dermic treasure sword was halved after it passed through the Green Lotus True Body, and it could no longer defend against the impact of the Creation Lotus platform. At the same time, a chilling killing intent surged over. The Fu Emperor of Malevolent Earth Sect had already arrived before Su Zimo. Twisting his wrist, he used an extremely strange saber technique and stabbed upwards towards Su Zimo. Before Su Zimo could turn around, his entire arm was suddenly flung behind him like a divine elephant's trunk. It coiled and trembled against the Fu Emperor's saber. Buzz! The saber quivered. The Fu Emperor was alarmed and felt a powerful ripping force. He could barely hold on to his dermic treasure saber and it flew out of his hands. He retracted his saber hurriedly and retreated. Su Zimo retracted his palm at the same time. The power of Malevolent Earth Sect's Fu Emperor had also exceeded Su Zimo's expectations. The secret skill of the mystic classic of the 12 demon kings of the Great Wilderness did not manage to snatch the saber from the hands of the Fu Emperor. Desolate Marshal, let's see how many of my attacks you can defend against. The Xiong Emperor of Heavenly Dipper Sect stood far away and spun his dermic treasure sword. It condensed into resplendent starlight and stabbed towards Su Zimo once more. You want to kill me with that scrap metal? You must be way too naive. Su Zimo smiled calmly with a relaxed expression. The Xiong Emperor of Heavenly Dipper Sect focused his gaze. He had just noticed that the sword wound on Su Zimo's palm had already healed. The 4 emperors were secretly alarmed. The regeneration capabilities of the Green Lotus True Body were way too strong. Although Su Zimo did not circulate the supreme divine power of everlasting vitality, the wounds caused by the dermic treasures could not hurt the foundation of the Green Lotus True Body. Piak! With his bare hands, Su Zimo sent the sword beam of the Xiong Emperor of Heavenly Dipper Sect flying once more. Although his palm was injured once more, the wound healed at a visible speed and fully recovered in a few breaths. Kill! The 4 emperors attacked at the same time. Apart from their destiny dermic treasures, they summoned a few other dermic treasures and shuttled around Su Zimo, releasing ferocious attacks. Su Zimo merely relied on the Creation Lotus platform and Green Lotus True Body to fight against the 4 emperors continuously. Before long, Su Zimo was covered in injuries on the battlefield. However, with the powerful life force and regeneration capabilities of his Green Lotus True Body, Su Zimo fought increasingly fiercer against the encirclement of 4 emperors. The Xiong and Fu emperors actually comprehended 4 supreme divine powers. What sort of opportunity did they obtain? I'm not sure. The Spear and Mirror emperors have also comprehended 3 supreme divine powers respectively, and are comparable to the ancient emperors. In the ancient era, even the Thunder, Saber and Buddha emperors merely comprehended 3 supreme divine powers. Strange, isn't the human emperor's seal with the martial emperor? Why isn't he summoning it? Monk Kong Yun was puzzled. Indeed, Su Zimo had the human emperor's seal with him. Furthermore, he was certain that if he summoned the human emperor's seal, the Starlight Sword and ancient bronze mirror would be suppressed mercilessly. The reason why he did not summon the human emperor's seal was because he wanted to temper his Green Lotus True Body and comprehend the supreme divine power he had been cultivating during this period of time. 3 heads 6 arms. The inheritance of 3 heads 6 arms was on the human emperor's seal. That was secondary. Most importantly, at the 10,000 race meet back then, the eternal human emperor used the Green Lotus True Body to release this supreme divine power. The Green Lotus True Body had inherited memories of the 3 heads 6 arms to begin with. At that time, Su Zimo's black-haired essence spirit was experiencing the entire process of the supreme divine power being released in his consciousness. Another thing was that when Su Zimo was at the Dharma characteristic realm, he cultivated 3 heaven and earth Dharma characteristics and already possessed the embryonic form of that supreme divine power. Among the supreme divine powers, he had the highest chance of comprehending 3 heads 6 arms. Everyone, the martial emperor's body is the creation of heaven and earth. It's difficult for ordinary dermic treasures to severely injure him. We have to use our divine powers. The Xiong Emperor of Heavenly Dipper Sect sent a voice transmission. That should be the case. The Dongfang Spear Emperor chimed in. Starfall. Almost at the same time, the emperors of Heavenly Dipper Sect and Malevolent Earth Sect channeled their essence spirits and drew mysterious trajectories with both hands. They pointed to the firmaments and shouted. Countless stars appeared in the firmaments boundlessly. The stars drew trajectories and smashed towards the ground like meteors, covering the skies densely. A supreme divine power, Starfall. The divine power could condense into vast stars that could descend from the skies and destroy the world. A single starfall was enough to shock the world, let alone 2 instances of the supreme divine power released at the same time. The entire ancient battlefield was trembling. The expressions of the emperors changed starkly as they retreated one after another, afraid that they would be struck by the falling stars. Su Zimo looked up at the firmaments with a burning gaze. That supreme divine power was unavoidable and he could only take it head-on. Kill! Roaring into the skies, Su Zimo closed 2 fingers and conjured a sword art. Suddenly, 108,000 heaven-slaying sword chi burst forth from his body. They were blazing and defied the heavens, piercing towards the descending stars. Boom! 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 The white sword beams collided with the falling meteors and let out a deafening bang. Countless stars exploded in midair. However, this was a supreme divine power after all, and there were 2 of them at that. The heaven-slaying sword chi alone was not enough to defend. Before long, Su Zimo was drowned by millions of starlight. Boom! 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 There was a loud bang. Su Zimo's figure vanished completely and the battlefield was in a mess. Massive pits were smashed by the stars and gravel flew everywhere as dust billowed. Could the martial emperor have been crushed to death by the stars? It's hard to say, that's 2 supreme divine powers descending at the same time. Even the mystic emperor would most likely be doomed. The surrounding emperors glared at the battlefield with nervous expressions. Boom! Suddenly, in the center of the battlefield, countless gravel exploded and mud flew everywhere as a tremendous life force burst forth with a green glow. Su Zimo tore through the air with the creation Lotus platform above his head. He was circled by powerful divine powers and his body surged with a rich life force. Although he looked a little wretched, Su Zimo's injuries were healing rapidly. The creation Green Lotus and everlasting vitality. You're tuning in to the Xueqi's Martial Arts Saga YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.